check. Okay. We should be going. I guess I could test to Facebook, but it was the weirdest thing. We had to just put Periscope on, put a link to Periscope there.
Yeah.
But
We don't need Facebook.
nah. No, because then it's also family that looks at it. They already think I'm crazy, but that's okay. You know. But some of the extended family, the Republicans in Michigan, I think they appreciate my Dem bashing sometimes, but yeah, other than that. So anyway, I wanted to kind of start off with well, two things really. I wanted to talk about C.J. Hopkins at Consent Factory, and I honestly kind of promote. He needs more support. I love his writing. He's in Berlin now, but he wrote. The first thing I saw was I think it was last fall, and it was the Year of the Headless Liberal Chicken. Have you by chance seen that? He basically, he's very much a leftist, but he is absolutely just tears apart the whole Russiagate stuff in a very comical way. So the most recent one, hang on, I've got my thousands of tabs up here. I think I put it in the messages. Just a sec. Was Trump Death Watch. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at that. But I just love this Consent Factory, manufacturing consent for private and public sector clients for over 250 years. So have you heard of him before?
Yeah, actually.
Okay. I don't know, he doesn't, maybe he just started this Patreon, I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem like he has a lot of people on yet. So I urge everyone to go support him. I think he's got a lot of good stuff. As a matter of fact, hi Aeolus. I gave my daughter this book, Zone 23, for Christmas because she likes reading this dystopian stuff. So anyway, well, I don't want to sit here and read the whole article, but the basic gist of it is just how we're in for another 2 years of alternating, Russiagate to Nazi, warning about Nazis with Trump. So I'll read this one little part here. I don't know, has anybody else read it? Aeolus?
Wait, is this the oversight document you sent us a couple of weeks ago?
No, hang on. I thought I put it in the Twitter messages. Maybe I didn't. It's C.J. Hopkins, and it's titled Trump Death Watch.
God, that doesn't sound ominous at all.
No.
It's okay. Hang on. Maybe I didn't send it. I thought I did. Hang on.
Wait, is this the... Okay. Trump Death Watch. Jesus Christ.
It's quite tongue-in-cheek. I like the way you wrote it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Please tell me that is tongue-in-cheek, because...
Oh, it's... Yeah.
Yeah, everything he
That
writes.
just...
It's like a
everything is-
hyperbolic...
Whenever I hear the phrase Death Watch, I just think of the Mandalorians, and everyone knows what those assholes are like.
So,
Imagine, like, fucking space Spartans. With blasters. And probably flame-throwing jetpacks.
Right.
okay, so hang on one sec. So I don't know what can we talk about in the meantime. I'm gonna find my one little line from this article. But how about the? Did anybody see the whole big deal on Twitter? Which Twitter's turned into Facebook now. Like I don't know how they're making stuff trend, but I saw what was trending was that George Bush passed Michelle Obama a piece of candy.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Like,
a big deal.
Okay,
Huh?
like,
I don't get it.
okay, here's the one thing. On the one side, it's nice to see a moment where, where we could just, like not be at each other's throats all the time. So, and that I can appreciate it. Aside from that, though, it's just sort of like, yeah, it's a nice break in the calm, but let's be honest, we still fucking hate each other.
I think it's a big reveal. I think every time you ever see those guys hanging out and having coffee, I don't really think that's them putting their partisan views aside. I think that the partisan views are part of a facade. And I'm
Exactly.
pretty sure that deep
Mhm.
down, they both know what's going on, and they
Mhm.
also have their roles to play, and they kind of accept it. But I mean, anytime you see that photo of Trump hanging out with the Clintons, think about it. It's a big
Yeah.
club.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
No,
That.
no.
Yeah.
That part I don't disagree with. But
Yeah.
like, I mean, I try, but I also am usually not one to just. Forgive me if it seems like I'm dismissive of that. It's just that I usually don't try to assign massive conspiracies to people who I are more or less in the same spot that I could find myself in if I were in their shoes. So I guess that's kind of where I come from.
I can dig that.
Like I think I've mentioned this before, but my grandparents are kind of in that tax bracket as well. My Japanese side, on the Japanese side of my family. So, and they're about as generally folksy in terms of their ethics and spending habits as you could come, except for fruits. That's about the one thing they let themselves get bougie on.
Okay.
But aside from that, you know, like beyond that though, they, in terms of the way they raised my mom and her brother and how they've treated me all my life, it's practically no different from anybody else. So what my general impression is that I don't think I'm that far removed. I don't see myself as that far removed from, even though I don't personally enjoy the benefits of it that much now. You know, I've seen enough of that life to understand a little bit of what goes inside there. And yeah, there's a lot of backstabbing politics that go once you start accumulating wealth at that level. But more or less, the people there aren't really that much different than people down here. So I don't know. I guess in the way I try not to assign unduly. I have a tendency not to assign what I feel is unduly harsh critique beyond, you know, anything that I could assign to people in my day-to-day existence. So that's just where I'm coming from.
Well, you guys all know this already, I think. I can relate to that somewhat because of one side of my family. They're kind of Mitt Romney style Republicans. My grandfather didn't come from much, but accumulated a lot. He was a corporate lawyer for Gulf and Western, which I'm so proud to say. but I loved him dearly. Anyway, so no, I understand. But I think we're just talking about like the political elite in this particular circumstance. But I know what you mean because people are people, and sometimes it's kind of weird when you've seen both sides to hear, you know, some of the things. I always say I feel like when it comes to wealth and poverty that there's more misunderstanding from the wealthy side about how poor people live than the other way around, having been in both worlds. But anyway, I don't know if that's exactly what you were getting at. But
no. It's just kind of like I'd see it in the same kind of way as though I do have some friends of mine that are libertarians, you know, including my mentor teacher, who I greatly respect and admire for everything that he's done for me personally, as well as for the profession as a whole.
Now you call yourself a libertarian socialist, is that right?
Yeah, but he's like a libertarian capitalist, so it's kind of an right libertarian.
We didn't really introduce you here, Chris. Aeolus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I guess this is the first time we've met, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I believe
so.
Chris does the podcast Progressive Rampage. I don't know if you're following that, but
I admit that I haven't. Although
that's okay. You and 300 million others.
No. So to give a background on my political development, I was a pretty staunch liberal for most of my life. Once I entered my 20s, I I began to sort of distance myself from liberalism as I saw some internal contradictions with the way they were approaching the issues of social justice. And then 2016 happened, and I began flirting with social democracy with Bernie Sanders' sort of rise to prominence. But, we all know how that went. So I took a few treks down further into the political wilderness, and after revisiting a couple voices that I used to follow during my transition away from liberalism, I decided to go for the full commission, and at the moment, I found myself as a libertarian socialist, which essentially means it's kind of like, well, I guess the crude way of putting it, it's like communism, but skipping the whole state apparatus part.
Right.
Yeah, like, first off, fuck the tankies. Second, fuck capitalism. 3, fuck it all.
I can get behind that.
So that's kind of where that's sort of where I developed from. What about you?
Well, let's see. To very loosely quote Marx, but not Karl, I wouldn't be a member of any party that would. Oh damn! I won't be a part of any party that would have me as a member. Does that make any sense? I definitely can't spit it out right, but I guess I consider myself an independent because each time I try to see if I can't pigeonhole myself into a group, I realize there are things that I just can't live with. So I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. On some things, I am conservative. I believe in individualism, but I also believe in collectivism at the same time. It's kind of a bit of a contradiction in my mind, but for some reason, it makes sense to me.
I think if you try,
I think there needs to be a blend. Honestly.
Yes.
But
So
yeah, I know what you mean.
For me, collectivism is a way to guarantee individualism. To guarantee individualism. That's my perspective. It's by collectively assisting the whole, you guarantee to all the potential to seek out their own individual paths in society.
Right.
Bingo.
Right. Yeah.
That is my
Good way to put that.
Yeah, I am. That is 100% what I'm trying to say. I can do that. But anyway, the podcast is called Progressive Rampage. The reason, though, it's not. There are many different definitions for words as the lexicon changes, and of course, you can hear a drive time Republican that's on the radio calling people who are clearly centrist, almost to the right, the left or the radical left, even talking about Clinton.
Yes, they're doing that all the time.
Trust me, libertarian socialists have had to deal with this for like 60 years. We know.
It's a crisis of identity, right?
Yeah, the fucking righties took the ANCAPs fucking took our definitions and ran it.
Absolutely.
We were the original. We were the OG libertarians, and then they fucking stole the word and pretended like.
So where I'm coming from with the rampage of progressives is more. I see in my other co-hosts, Josh Cameron, who'll be joining us later, I think, and Jesse Chaney, we kind of see progressive as something that doesn't need a political stripe attached to it. It's more of an interest in finding the truth, putting down the people who are breaking the law, and actually moving forward as a country, no matter if you lean to the right or to the left or you find yourself in the center. It's like progressive doesn't have to be a Democrat only or a liberal only terminology, even though it is pretty much painted that way. And so now we have that stigma attached. So we like to call ourselves program in the meantime.
I have some
catch
people
on.
who make that mistake, even with something like the Democratic Socialist Coalition. I had to explain this to my mentor teacher, because there was some chapters of the DSA which were actively promoting communism, and so I had to explain, no, the DSA is a pretty eclectic blend of pan left organization. It's just basically coalescing every faction of the left that that they can in order to work together for presumably for some basic left-wing policies, such as universal income, such as, well, not universal income, universal health care, free education for educational debt relief for the American citizenry, and affordable housing and income. So that's,
I have to say they're doing a really good job of vacuuming up a lot of the shattered left that just decided everybody wanted to be in charge of who's going to run the next thing for Bernie. And if you'll notice, Gerberian Shepsky now has a nice little red flower right next to it.
And trust me, that's no small effort considering how many times the left has backstabbed itself.
Oh yeah, that's its worst.
Like,
we are our own worst enemy, for sure.
Yeah, social.
Well,
you had social democrats assassinating anarchists, communists assassinating social democrats, and everybody just assassinates the anarchists because fuck those guys in particular.
Well, I first heard, I think it was about 6 months
Rip
ago.
my life.
On Tucker Carlson, I heard them just murdering the word progressive, and I thought, they don't want any of their populist Trump voting viewers to go, what's this progressive stuff? They need to go ahead and paint it like that. No, that's the enemy. You don't want to listen to that. Yeah.
Yep. Well, no, I mean,
it was just terrible.
No, but it's totally expected. I mean, this is Tucker Carlson. Let's be honest here. Regardless of his opinions about Iran, Syria, or Russia, he's still a fucking corporatist.
Yes.
How about his comments
Absolutely.
about Amazon, though, recently?
I love it.
Did anybody catch that?
I just like the fact that somebody on the mainstream is making these comments.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care. Jabba the Hutt, Tucker Carlson, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
What happened? Why did he break loose?
If I didn't accept this from Disney when The Last Jedi came around, I'm certainly not going to just run around and accept it just because Tucker fucking Carlson.
You will not have the blinders put on.
Oh well.
I've got to maintain some objectivity here.
I don't know why before when you were talking about not wanting to sort of align with a certain group, I just thought of a Carlin saying, I can't get the quote exactly right, but he was like, I don't have a problem with people, with individuals. It's when they get into groups and they start all wearing the same hats or things like that, then that's when he has a problem with it. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm the same way sometimes, and I have to check myself that I'm not just being contrarian for no reason, because I resist that too, like being lumped in a group. But I think it's because, like you said, I'll agree with 75% of something, and then the other part I don't. So I just don't want to, I don't have that need to have a label on, I don't know, my views.
I sometimes refer to the left as we, but honestly, I think if you look into the definitions, the way people define them in the global left versus the American left, I would say that I'm probably part of the global left if I had to pick a group, which I know that's like the broadest 50% spectrum you could possibly pick, but I guess I'll accept that one. But all the other labels, give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just noticed someone I met in D.C. named Sarah Reynolds. She can't come on, but she was watching. And she is someone who was a huge Bernie supporter and voted for Trump. It's interesting to talk to her. I
still don't get those people.
I've yet to meet any of them.
I do.
I get them, but why? Just why?
Here's why. This is the way I see it. They saw it as kind of two things. One, a big fuck you to the DNC, which I totally understand. And number two, they saw Trump as the guy who was going to upset the apple cart because he is such a buffoon.
Well, mission fucking accomplished there.
Right, but that's the whole point. Get somebody in there who's actually going to put an ugly face on the ugly shit that we do as a country, which I think is a necessary evil. I think we do need to start putting an ugly face on the shit that we do. I mean, Obama's drone strike program, my God, look at the number of innocent civilians it killed, and Trump now is inheriting that program. So, I mean, we've got to start looking at these things and the damage that they cause that has just been swept under the rug by our mainstream media. It's absurd. But
it's still being
about Trump is he's putting the ugly face back on this shit.
To pin it all on him is ridiculous too.
That'd be great if they were actually focusing on that, but they're not. What they're focusing on is all this periphery shit about whether or not he was a Manchurian candidate for Russia. Which, let's be fucking honest about this for a second. Half the country, not even half the country gives enough of a fuck about for this to be a relevant conversation for anybody anywhere.
Right. The vast majority don't give a shit. They've got bigger.
Right. Okay. So I'm not going to sit here and read the whole article. I wish everybody. I should have sent it out more. The Consent Factory article, but I just have to read this one line because it's so funny. Oh damn! Hang on, one sec. Here we go. It's the Trump Death Watch. So sorry, it's a little out of context, but it's talking about all this stuff. Just the news, constant news coverage of it. So I'm just going to read a paragraph because I love the ending. I think it's hilarious. By the morning of Saturday, August 25th, this latest Trump Death Watch, like those that have preceded it, had been canceled due to declining ratings. The corporate media started running those features reminding Americans how difficult it is to impeach or otherwise remove from office a treasonous Russian intelligence asset who is openly working with Vladimir Putin to destroy America and Western civilization and establish a global fascist dictatorship ruled by Putin, Trump, Corbyn, that Italian bozo, and Bashar al-Assad. The corporate media run these features in the wake of every Trump Death Watch episode to taper liberals off the effects of the mindless hysteria they have just finished generating. I just thought that was great. Because it's like they're getting everybody hyped up. I'm like, oh, we're going to impeach him. Really? I mean, I don't know. I think all the stuff he writes is fantastically sarcastic, and it's just great. Anyway.
And here's my problem. Let's say we do impeach Trump. Then we end up with, I mean, are they fucking stupid? I mean, that's insane. I mean, we know that Trump is bad, but Pence is worse. The man's got a religious agenda that wants to see the fucking apocalypse. I mean, what the hell is that? That's insane.
But in regards to that, with the other thing that I posted in one of the messages is Max Blumenthal's The Gray Zone, which I highly recommend everyone check out too. I bow to Max Blumenthal. He's one of my favorites because, I mean, really, he is reporting news like our media is supposed to be doing, right?
Wow, a real journalist.
Now I knew he was Sidney Blumenthal's son, but I really didn't even know anything about Sidney Blumenthal. So I'm just now reading. I guess he was very pro Clinton. I don't know. This is Wikipedia. I don't know enough to make a call. Not that he should be judged by his father or anything. So, but anyway, he did this.
Can we do it like a little?
Huh?
I was just joking. Joking.
Judging him by no.
Maybe judge him a little.
Don't judge people by their parents.
Or how about he decided to rebel against that?
It could be.
He may have seen the other side of things, and he's now on a quest to expose it.
So, so he's talking about NED, the National Endowment for Democracy. And again, I mean, I can't really paraphrase a 22-minute video, but you seem to know a little bit more about it, Chris, already than I did before I saw this. If you care to jump in
just
here.
The vague characterization of the general concept most people may have in their heads of the CIA traveling around the world spreading American propaganda to make ourselves look very good. They're like the marketing arm that also happen to have semi-automatic weapons and secret people.
Right.
And they show up, they push people around, they create havoc, they make a scene, they start a war, we finish the war, then we rebuild them again and give them democracy. But the democracy we give them is a contingent one. It requires the puppet that we're intending to install
Right.
so that we can have more international hegemony over these other countries. And I know I'm generalizing the shit out of it, but I think that's basically what this private organization that's using public funds is trying to do.
It is, but
Beautiful
here's
said.
here's the piece that's really important. That is its focus, but as an underlying focus is to do whatever is necessary to destabilize the concept of socialism in that country in favor of free market capitalism.
Yep.
Yes.
And we all know how nefarious that shit is.
Yeah.
Well,
Back to the voting for Trump, if you're a Democrat. I have a cousin. I consider her one of my most trusted, intelligent cousins. Straight, stable. Her mother been a Democratic delegate for the state and a councilwoman and held Iowa's party or Democratic Party positions. My cousin had been in the Air Force. Like I said, veteran, very. She could not vote for Hillary because of what she viewed as illegal actions in the primary in our caucuses in Iowa.
Okay.
That as she considers herself a patriot, she could not support. He said, "No, vote no matter who does not matter when you have somebody that does what she did."
well, I voted Jill Stein, but I felt that way. Like, which is more important? I mean, they rigged an election. That's not democracy. I'd rather have someone I
Right.
don't want win and know that they won, because our elections are fair. But the reason I brought this up right now, I wanted to talk about it anyway, but about Ned, is that in this video they talk a lot about some of the stories from North Korea that we're told, and how Max Blumenthal goes through and looks at several of them and how they were altered, and it's like, are they partly fabricated or exaggerated, and how whenever there's like real attempts for peace, I mean, didn't Trump, like, that was kind of a good thing when he talked to Kim Jong-un? I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
and then
I agree.
and then they wheeled out some old I mean, I don't want to call them crisis actors, but the way it was painted in that Blumenthal thing, that I don't remember her name, but one of the young women,
Yes,
she really is a
Parks.
crisis actor.
Yeah.
She has 3 different histories in her
Yes.
story. She was
Yes.
raped, she wasn't. Her mother was, her mother wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's all the while, like, she starts off her speech with, they have one television channel and no internet, to reach the millennials. But
Right.
anyway,
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's total fabrications.
Yeah.
One correction: the PR department for the United States with other countries is called USAID. They will go out and try to gather favor with countries. Anything the CIA does is with a purpose and a plan.
Okay.
So there is no PR intended with CIA. If they're doing something, they're doing steps they've already planned out. USAID will go to a country, install water systems, go to a country, make sure medicines are out there, things for the goodwill. And they're very careful not to mix CIA things in. But when you get to CIA, no, all plan.
Okay. Good correction. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason I say that is I just feel like, okay, sometimes we need to just focus on what Trump does. I mean, we had a candidate on, I don't want to talk about him without him here, but he's running as a Dem. He's very much I think, independent-minded, progressive, ex-Marine. But he even said, look, I'm willing to give Trump credit when he does something good. It's ridiculous to just, I mean, the way the media is just demonizing. And again, I'm not a Trump supporter, but sorry, Sarah, if you're still listening. But but I do think it just makes no sense. Let's focus on what he actually does. Because the other thing that will do is for the people that did vote for him because it was maybe an anti-establishment protest vote, or they really believed that he was going to do the things he said. If we focus on what he's actually doing, then people can see, okay, is he really sticking to what he promised or not? But I think it's ridiculous that we, getting along with Kim Jong-un, how's that a bad thing? I mean, I'm sorry, but when you see this stuff from on Ned, and you see these fake stories out of North Korea, it does kind of make you wonder. Like, I remember the one about the guy that he was on, I think it was on CNN, and he kept saying all he could think about was chicken. The guy that was like starving, he came from some camp. I remember seeing that.
Right.
And now they're saying that he was exaggerating things too. So what do we do? I mean, this to me is really nefarious.
It is.
I mean, let's not make any two ways about it. Kim Jong-un and his entire family is an entire group of some of the most power-hungry motherfuckers that you could ever come across on the planet. But let's not use that as a pretext for rampant militarism just because we think we're in the right this time. We're super sure about it, guys. We got this. I think we've had enough incidents throughout the past at least decade or so at this point to say that, you know, maybe having that kind of that degree of gun-ho is not always the wisest course of action to take.
Well, the scary thing to me about these kind of organizations, and it mentioned, oh, damn it, what's his name? Jimmy Dore did a thing on him too. It was in the clip. Did anybody catch that? I want to say his name's, it's something like, is it Thor or some weird like?
Oh, Thor Jorgensen or something.
Something like, yeah. Jimmy Dore did a segment on this a while ago, and I never really dug into it. I saw it and kind of, okay, that's a big can of worms.
Was it in Venezuela?
You know stuff about this, Mitch? Snort?
No, I'm thinking. Are you talking about when Jimmy Dore talked about the Danish?
Hang on, I'll find it. I'll at least find his name.
Some Danish government person.
Wait, hang on.
And that would have been Dan Jurgens.
Thor Halvorsen.
Okay, different person.
Thor Halvorsen.
Yeah, he's like an outspoken neoliberal dude.
So all of this is couched in this, like, you know, humanitarian aid, and we're doing all this great stuff. That is just scary. Like, how, and I kept thinking after I watched this, I thought, well, how do we keep a check on all these things and find out what's legitimate, what are they really doing? Well, we have to have like a whole bunch of Max Blumenthals, like, to dig in and follow the money, follow what they actually do. I mean, I don't see, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I'm not that impressed with The Intercept anymore, a lot of the writing there. I don't see anybody else doing this kind of reporting other than Max Bloom. Anybody got a favorite, like, person they...
You know, I really like the work that Abby Martin does, what is it, Tell Sir, that she had been on recently, just got pulled off of Facebook as well, as like because they were reporting on Venezuela, and all of that. But but I think she works with Max Blumenthal sometimes.
Right, okay. And Real News Network, I think, which he works with. Okay.
And then what is it? It's not True Pundit. What's the thing that McGovern has that he writes on?
Hang on. Are you
Darn it! I feel real embarrassed. I don't remember the name of that.
Okay. Is it Consortium News?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah. They had the Unity for Julian Assange thing last night, and they had the editor from Consortium. Yeah, they're good too.
Bookmarks in Google rob us of our memory.
Right. Yeah, very true. Very true. I remember when I used to remember phone numbers. Now, you know, we're lazy. We don't remember. Or directions.
Or I had like a folded up list. Yeah.
No, I used to keep the numbers in my head. It's gone now. Just gone.
I make it a point to try to do math without a calculator as much as possible.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I mean is, like, for foreign policy news and stuff, I feel like, you know, Max Blumenthal's been covering a lot of stuff. I don't know, it's just, where do you go to learn all this stuff and know who you can trust?
Yeah, I mean, there are methods, but they don't work. They're not very reliable. But some folks say you listen to all the different sides, and whatever the common thread is, then that's the meat of what the story was really about, and everything else was just a whole bunch of narrative added to it. So then you're kind of left with a vague idea of what's going on, but none of the details really.
I think that might have been true at one point.
Yeah.
But
I think
now
it's,
I don't even know about that anymore.
yeah,
No.
I think it's so far gone now that there's not much actual news in.
Prior to when we had when our mainstream media was in the hands of 5 corporations, that was probably very true. At this point,
Oh yeah, Fox is gone now. It's owned by Disney.
right?
Maybe that's why Tucker's got a soft heart.
Oh gosh, can you imagine just like Bob Iger sending it? Have a seat, Tucker.
No, he's wearing like a magic tie pin that Jiminy Cricket gave him, right?
Yeah, you're
Just mention Bernie once a week.
You're going to be wearing your stupid fucking bow tie again. You're going to shut the fuck up and listen to what we have to say.
I mean,
Also, if
RT
you say
America
one
has a
bad
lot of
thing
good-
about episode 9, we are coming for your balls.
Well, we
I was
lost
gonna say
Ed
RT America
Schultz.
does pretty good reporting.
Yeah.
They have their own
Yeah.
bias and skew, but it seems to be a far less effect than what the American.
I mean, but
Well,
Yeah.
the American journalists
for
on there,
fuck's
but
sake,
we lost
he-
Ed
he's
Schultz.
objective compared to.
yeah, yeah. Ed Schultz was a beacon.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
I liked what he did.
Yeah.
I wish. What's his face? Cy Hirsch was allowed to even do any journalism in the United
what
States.
happened to him? He just
I don't know,
went
but
quiet.
the vagueness I got on that is that he's only allowed to practice journalism in Europe. Like he can't. He can't. I don't know. For whatever reason, he only gets published in European periodicals.
Like Seymour Hirsch, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Like he won't get published in anything in America.
Oh well, I'm sure after the whole Miley thing, you know, the establishment was kind of weary about him having any.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But we need more folks like that guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, this is interesting tidbit.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. I'm not saying that was.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but that sounds pretty good.
Interesting. I'm reading from Wikipedia, so full, disclosure. I have no idea. Haven't verified this stuff, but this is Sidney Blumenthal, so no responsibility of Max Blumenthal. It's his dad, but says the British American journalist and author Christopher Hitchens, under subpoena, submitted an affidavit to the trial managers of the Republican Party during the impeachment of Bill Clinton. In the affidavit, Hitchens swore that then-friend Blumenthal had described Monica Lewinsky as a stalker. This allegation contradicted Blumenthal's own sworn deposition in the trial, which resulted in a hostile exchange of words between the two. Following the publication of The Clinton Wars, which was Sidney Blumenthal's book, but was very, pro-Clinton, apparently. Hitchens wrote several pieces in which he accused Blumenthal of manipulating facts. Interesting, huh?
I miss Hitchens.
I don't know. I have to see where this even, came from, but to verify it.
Another one, Chris Hedges. That's a good source of
Oh,
information.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although he's the last couple of episodes I saw of him, he literally was calling, without using so many words, violent revolution in the United States, which in his mind would be the only way to bring about proper socialism.
Mm-hmm.
So he's
Go back and listen if you want, but that's what I got from it.
Well, wasn't he...
That sucks.
He was, wasn't he booted... He used to write for the Times, is that right? And he had some, commencement speech, and after that...
and he called him out for promoting the Iraq War.
Right.
Just like half a dozen other people,
And then he got let go from mainstream media.
Yep,
Yeah.
they did that to Jesse the Body Ventura, too.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's on RT.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
what is it
proving
with,
his age, but he's cool.
what is it with RT just taking up people? Well, I know why they do this. They're doing it specifically because, Russia at least thinks that they're getting an opportunity to specifically undermine stability within the U.S. by getting journalists like this. So, like, on the one hand, okay, I see what you're doing there, Russia. That's pretty fucking cute. But at the same time, fuck. But also at the same time, it's like, fuck, but you have a point.
Well, sure, maybe that's their motivation, but the journalists, the American journalists, I don't think that's
no. The journalists are.
They just want to go somewhere.
Like Russia doesn't give a fuck about it most any of this. They're just seeing this as an easy opportunity to sow some discord in the U.S.
Well, and all you have to do to sow discord is tell the truth.
Tell the truth,
Right. That's exactly
that's why they're not stifling it.
Like, who needs propaganda? Who needs propaganda when the truth is already
it's
dark
kind of
enough?
hard. It's kind of hard to say Russia's doing anything wrong there with RT when all they're doing is letting American journalists tell the truth on their RT America.
Well, and there should be a distinction made. RT America different programming from RT.
Yes.
RT itself, if you watch that, you really get the overtone of the people's everything.
I agree.
But RT America, it seems that they've scooped up anybody who's willing to talk shit about the United States and said, okay, just do whatever you think is true. And that's what they did. But if you go watch regular RT, it most definitely needs that little blurb at the bottom saying that the Russian government owns it.
I agree. When you're watching their foreign policy coverage, I've made the mistake of leaving it on a few times. And
eventually you come across, no way. You're like, oh, God. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, not as bad as accidentally leaving it on CNN or something, but,
Right.
I mean, Al Jazeera is pretty decent most of the time, but,
they're a little too focused on the bloodshed. I honestly am weak with that stuff and have to turn it off because they don't like to hide images.
Kudos to kudos to Al Jazeera for finding journalists who had the stomach for that.
David Schuster. No, wait, he's not on. Where is he now? One America or some other news.
It's basically Al Jazeera, The Guardian, The Intercept, and some programs on RT America. I wouldn't say all of RT America is that particularly great. Although, you know what? Here's the thing nobody fucking talks about with RT. Like, is Tom Hartman still there?
Yes.
I saw somebody else hosting his show, or at least in a commercial form.
Okay. So if he's still there, okay, hold on a second. Wasn't Hartman like a huge Hillary supporter, like back post the convention?
No. Oh, post the convention, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was so anti-Trump, he was on that train.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he went off the deep end.
Like, even at that point, even Chomsky said you might as well hold your nose and pull the lever for Hillary Clinton. Yeah, which I totally respect, but
did not agree with it. It was probably Chomsky's lowest.
It's like the worst thing he ever said.
Yeah, I think.
There were other things. Chomsky's a bright guy, and all credit to him. He definitely does not get nearly as much respect, not just for his contributions to psychology, but also to political theory that he often rightly deserves. But just because he deserves that credit does not mean that he should be taken just as word of gospel.
Right.
I like retweeting the little cartoon with the eyeballs. Has anybody seen that? It's Amy Goodman narrating, but it's manufacturing consent. It's a really trippy, weird thing with the little eyeballs with feet.
Interesting.
I showed it to my daughter, and she was like, "Whoa, what is that?" Yeah, you haven't seen that before? Look up, if you just go on YouTube and put in manufacturing consent Amy Goodman, you'll see it.
Okay.
It's very strange, but I've tweeted it out a lot because it's a good little cartoon. It tells you how things work. Who's seen that? Anybody? Just me?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I don't know. Amy Goodman's been a little bit of, I hate to say, disappointment too. I just
Yeah,
feel
I
like,
got to agree.
I don't know, kind of along the lines of The Intercept, you know, to me, except Glenn Greenwald. But anyway, anybody find that?
Yeah, I've watched some of those articles flip flop, and I I'm so terrible at remembering names, but they hired a few people back during the election. They increased their staff at The Intercept, and I used to be so gung ho. This is where the news is. People need to read this. They were doing a lot of like deep investigative stuff, and they brought in people who had previously worked at, I want to say, BuzzFeed or something like that, which is just an offshoot of the New York Times, or maybe it was a New York Times guy. But it was somebody who had literally just written straight up lies about Bernie Sanders, and then all of a sudden it became somebody who worked for The Intercept. And so I got a little annoyed by that.
Wasn't that the weirdest thing to watch? I thought during the primary, I'll never forget, like watching one by one. It was like, even TYT at the time, I was still watching that, but they were saying, look,
Fuck TYT
16
first off.
Well, yes, now I don't watch them. I'm saying during the primary. But they were like, look, in one day or something, there were like 16 hit pieces on Bernie. And it was like one by one, we're watching all these places. Well, I used to go to read things, and it's all so slanted and biased. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, Politico, I don't know, Daily Cause, everything. It just was like, I couldn't believe what was happening.
Yeah. And
So
even
weird.
Daily Chaos was doing like back and forth stuff. Like it maybe to show that they weren't slanted, but like one day they were saying something, you know, Bernie Sanders really could pull it out, and then the next one it's like, California, you don't even need to vote, Hillary won. Like, are you kidding? Like, yeah.
Right.
It was, we were watching it all happen in fast motion right then and there.
Yeah.
But
And we were documenting it. That's the thing. I think most people. I think that's the thing that most people didn't understand at the time. It was like that stuff wasn't just, you know, it wasn't just that we were just making stuff up. We were actually there.
Yeah, we were right there watching all of it.
Yeah, this is the crux of an argument I had with a friend of my daughter's friend's mother, who's this liberal attorney, and we still don't talk. But, you know, I was like, look, I was watching all of this, and, you know, I actually have a journalism degree, thank you. I know what I'm talking about. And I said, why was there no coverage of all the election fraud or election irregularities that were going on across the country? You know, CNN should have been reporting how they were running out of ballots, and instead they're declaring Hillary the winner the night before. And so if you couldn't see that, like, I don't know why people just didn't believe us or thought. I guess it's because they were only watching TV and they weren't watching other things like we were, I guess.
If you heard any of the right-wing stuff during that time, because I do listen to Republican radio in my car because I like to hear where other people are coming from. And then I pull over, throw up every now and then. But
I try. I'm in North Carolina. And I think
well,
like
I know what you're talking about.
It's like 5 minutes, and then I can't.
Oh God, they get bad. But I was listening to them calling out the left media dumping those stories, and what they were doing was they were skewing it and saying, but if you look at the Republican Party, our primaries are secure, and all we really need to do is ID everybody at the door, and it'll be fine. Well, I mean, they fuck with their side as well. They must, and I'm making conjecture, but the only people reporting on the Democrats fucking around was the Republicans. And the only people that report on the Republicans fucking around is the Democrats.
Well, and there you go. There's part of your answer, too, of why people voted for Trump. Because
they were getting more truth, maybe, from one side.
They felt like they were hearing the truth over there instead.
Right.
I mean, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't vote based on some kind of social ideology. At the end of the day, some people just vote for whoever's going to take less money away from them.
Right.
Whoever they think is going to, you know?
And who can forget Hillary's white noise machines?
Yeah, right. Broadband for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Those.
Yeah, at the convention,
blocking it out.
White noise machines. Yeah.
If you could see the cell phone videos from the convention that people that were Bernie supporters were filming, totally different atmosphere than what.
I've seen a few.
I was there, not in the convention center, but in Philly, and I will never forget seeing Bernie delegates crying in the bathroom. I mean, bawling, crying. They were several from had come from the West Coast. They gave everything they had to it. They were so angry and upset. It was awful to see that. I mean,
it would have been different if it had been a legitimate loss.
Yeah, and we were out there. I don't know if anybody's seen the democracy.
Remember the Green Party.
The democracy coffin. Has anybody ever?
Yeah, I remember that.
We had an actual live. We were walking beside.
Oh wow!
It. So yeah, so people were very pissed off.
Eventually they used it to climb the fence.
Yeah, yeah. We were down there at night, and it was getting a little out of hand, and then it was pouring rain. But no, I mean, there's just a lot of anger. I mean, when you saw, and that was the other thing. Right. So, when I went back to my, the Airbnb in Philly, and go on the news, and it's like balloons and confetti, and I'm seeing what I'm seeing out on the street, and it's like, here we go again with this staged crap. I really felt like that, the Wizard of Oz. Like once you look behind the curtain and you see that, you can't unsee it. It's just
no, you can't unsee it.
You're like, what's on TV is not what's happening, and that's a really weird feeling. I will never forget that. Like, wow.
Here's something that'd be interesting to prove true or false. When Obama, I think it was a presidential order, but he filed an order to allow propaganda to be performed in the United States inside. I think that was just before the election cycle.
Wasn't that within the NDAA or something?
Or maybe it was. Like the last thing that he signed off on, it included the allowance of American propaganda to be done in the United States on the people rather than on foreigners.
Right.
Yeah.
Or domestic. I forget how it was written, but that just makes me think that contributed to the allowance of this kind of shit to go on.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what it was. NDAA legalizes propaganda. Yeah, anyway.
I was just wondering if it happened before or after.
Oh yeah, it was definitely before. Actually, this article is
like just before or something.
There was something else. This article is 2012. But I thought there was something else that happened in December of 2016 with that. Something additional that he signed, and I can't think of it right now.
Didn't have something to do with, if my memory serves me correctly, I think it had something to do with protests. Okay. And that if you're going to show up to a particular event and protest, something about how the bill or whatever it was he signed increased the distance between the protesters and whatever it was the event that was being protested. I think that's part of it, and I think there was also something having to do with the decibel level from your counter protest or whatever it was had to be significantly lower than whatever the event was.
So in other words, bring white noise machines?
Something of that nature. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was something that came out in 2016 that he had signed, essentially saying that regarding protests.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, did you hear what I said? Right. I said bring your white noise machines. I'm looking through this here. This is actually from the White House. Yeah, it's too long. I don't know. That sounds right. That sounds familiar.
I have to say my favorite fabricated video from that time frame was when Hillary was trying to get into a car and they made everyone believe that she had metal parts falling out of her pantsuit.
What?
Seriously, this was like huge on the right wing, and they like even slowed it down and focused on the audio. And
I don't remember that.
They show little things falling, but it was all CGI. Like it was totally
nice.
Yeah.
No, I saw the fall. Like I remember.
Yeah, well,
that
she
video.
did fall,
yeah.
But then they added this sound to it, and then they zoomed the camera. It's the same tech they used when they had that video of a pigeon walking by Putin, and he salutes when he goes by him. That it looks so real, but it's just animation. Yeah. But yeah, that was my favorite because I was like, what kind of a catheter requires like 7 metal parts? This is ridiculous. Nothing fell out of her pants. Yeah.
It's still funny.
So,
I shared the hell out of that thing. Yeah.
oh, gosh. Okay, so for people like us that spend all our time digging through this stuff, we can maybe sort out what's real and what's not. But I don't know. It doesn't give me a lot of hope for what's going to happen.
No, not really.
I mean,
No, and I mean you've seen the technology they portrayed several times on TV now with they're using a real time CGI thing of Trump's face. And somebody else can talk while Trump moves realistically. And they did it with Obama too. And so now all I can think of immediately when I see that is they don't even need to blow a building up anymore. They can totally make Kim Jong-il or Kim Jong-un like start.
Well, they tell them they're about 100 meters off. They need to push 100 meters forward to the southeast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't hate me. I have that software.
It's just landing in the field.
I wish I had
Don't doubt it. Mark.
It's awesome.
you have what?
Don't doubt it.
Oh, the dark side of being a human factors engineer.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I have software that
Somebody
can
get squad lead up.
realistically model a human to enough where you don't know it's not a human.
Nice.
And one time while I was unemployed, I designed a cafeteria for university, and I put in, just trying to figure out how to put the path through. It was actually easier just to, it's called parenting, tell it this object's going to move with the shoulder muscles. So I put a camera on the shoulder mounted of the model and had the model walk through the cafeteria I designed. And I'd gone to the places like they said, these are the pieces of things that we're going to put in the cafeteria. So I called the manufacturer of the floor and got the shape and model files for the floor tile, carpeting samples, everything. I had all of the digital samples of what that would look like, and I put those into it. So as a cafeteria, it had a little buffet line with a sneeze guard. So the model was programmed to walk in, turn, and look in at each of the different items that were in the cafeteria, and then walk out through the rest of it so that they get an idea of what are we going to build. But it was wasn't completely explained to them that this was computer animated, and the customer actually bought it, but their first question was, where did you find another cafeteria that looks so much like what we want?
This is perfect.
Nice.
Because they saw that when the camera went, it had reflections and everything turned on.
Right.
So when the camera looked at the nose guard, it showed the model holding a camera.
Right.
Wowie, wow. And I can't even get my computer to convert 2 hours of audio into a video in less than 3 hours.
I hadn't actually seen what you just described about Trump, because I don't have cable anymore, and I didn't see it. I'm not surprised. And
I found it on YouTube. I don't have cable either.
Oh, okay.
But it was like some documentary that my girlfriend was watching about the scary reality of the future of politics or some crap like that. But
well, we've joked about how there are hours and hours of us talking on here, so yeah, you could splice things together and be like,
well, and that's how the tech works. Is it predicts facial movements based on loads and loads of stuff that people have acquired over the years. Yeah, all the audio from all of this.
Yep.
That's creepy. So they can make any one of us look like we did something on video.
Yeah.
That is really creepy.
That is creepy.
Yeah. Can't wait, huh?
Right.
This can be aliens are gonna come out of the sky. You're gonna look out your window and then nothing's there.
Right. Well, let's see.
I can only wish.
What other big stories are? I'm just. Does anybody else notice? I mean, obviously we've had a lot of censorship on Twitter recently, and it's been going on for a long time, and it's gotten progressively worse. But it really seems to me now like the things that are trending are just artificially, I mean,
Oh, and especially if you go look at that page of trending stuff, it's completely artificial.
Oh,
but
yeah. I've
you
noticed
used to be able to push a hashtag by getting enough people together, and I think it was like oh, I forget the number now, like maybe 5,000 retweets in an hour or something, and it would cause it. But now, I mean, people are running these campaigns all over the place, and the only stuff that's still working are like the kids that work for March for Our Lives, you know.
Yeah, I've just
And
noticed
that
really
being-
stupid. The hashtags now are like, well, here's this one.
Is there one for
Hashtag-
Block Trump?
No, I know. I saw something. Oh, wait, hang on. No, it's a lot of sports stuff, and then I've noticed a lot of stupid, like, phrases. Like, I don't know what this one is. Add toys to a band. It's like stupid little sayings. Like, really? That's what's trending now? I don't buy it. I think it's... I don't know.
Bizarre.
Yeah. It's like, it's almost like getting people to offer up personal information, too, I thought. Maybe that's... sounds paranoid, but it's just like stupid. I don't know. Let me see if I can find another one. Like, I can't believe whatever, you know, I never thought I would. And
Oh, the like Twitter games. Yeah.
Yes,
I've
it
played
made me
those,
think of that stupid 25 things or whatever on Facebook. I didn't have any part of because I didn't have Facebook back then. But it was like, it's almost like designed to get you to dump in your personal information on there.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Is your mother's maiden name crazy? Tell it to us. Go.
Yeah, right. No, my mother's maiden name is Church. Go figure.
That's interesting.
It is. I'll be right back.
All right.
Oh boy, yeah. Actually, the Progressive Rampage at Progressive Ram 1 got Twitter banned for 12 hours a few days ago.
For what?
Well, somebody said, and yeah, they were explicit. Somebody said, "You motherfuckers can't convince me that Trump didn't collude with Putin. It's all going to come down because you fuckers are morons." And I said, "Who are you calling moron, asshole?" That was it. And I got
That was it?
vanished. Yeah, right.
Holy shit! Jeez.
I was like, this guy like 10 or 12 epithets. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing, but
Wow.
anyway.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, Twitter has really gotten out of hand.
Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram's not so bad, except the big problem there is that they won't show things chronologically. And if you like
Right.
2 or 3 pictures, they'll only show you the timelines from they'll show you the history of those people.
Right.
I follow like 250, 300, not very many, but I only see like 6 different people's things. And all these
Right.
other people are posting because I can see their posts, you know, if I search them individually. But
Right.
yeah, I kind of had this question on the podcast about it was called free speech, cheap surf. I like to play with the words because we're all serfs and we're cheaply bought with this idea of free speech. But
Right.
kind of, it used to be that people did go out into public squares and discuss things constantly.
Right.
And now we've all kind of retreated into our homes. We have the internet, and you know our net neutrality has been taken away. But I wanted to like coin the phrase of the neo town square. I'm sure somebody else has already said it in the past, but that's what Facebook and Twitter has kind of become, is the place where we have most of our interactions and conversations. But
Right.
it's like the government has allowed a private company to create this gigantic space for us to talk in, and let the company be the people who stifle our free speech since the government's not allowed to. But now
Right.
that the company, Facebook, is colluding with the government in order to stifle certain groups that are against foreign policies and stuff like that, it's almost like, well, then can't we argue that our First Amendment rights are being stifled? Or
Yeah.
is it this terms of service argument? Because everybody comes back at me, it's a private company. They can do whatever they want. If you don't like it, don't go on Facebook. Where the fuck else am I supposed to talk to these 5,000 people? And so I don't know. Like, it seems like there's a moment where we ought to change some stuff. And the only people talking about it are conservatives trying to call in the owner of Twitter to chat with that guy, I forget his name, about how they're blocking conservatives.
Right.
And it's fucking with free speech. So I don't know. Like, what do you think about that, Brian?
I think the solution is twofold. One, I think we need to draw more attention to it. so that it's not just conservatives that are talking about this kind of censorship. And I think too, why can't our government create a forum where people can get together and talk? I mean, I don't see a problem with that.
It's dangerous.
It will be completely covered under under the First Amendment, so we won't have these kinds of infringements on freedom of speech. And
you have personal filters to block out Nazis and crap, you know, like
right,
like we always had in the first place.
You'll be able to set that up yourself.
Yeah, right.
It's not something the government would get involved with. You'd set that up. So
that's
if
my
you
point.
want to see certain things, that's fine, and I don't have any problem with that. But it's where the government, where a private entity decides to get involved and say, no, we don't want you viewing this, and we're going to block you from doing that. I'm sorry, that is a First Amendment infringement.
Right. And I don't even see a slippery slope involved in that, because folks will bring up, you know, what about the pedos or those? You know what? That they're rapists. I mean, they're committing crimes. Of course, that stuff gets blocked out. That's not
obviously. I mean, that's
not what we're discussing. But words are words, man.
Yeah, that is a ridiculous argument.
So what do we do about the censorship? So I feel like part of it is to like with Twitter now, that it's not, I mean, the whole reason I started doing Twitter back in 2016 is I feel like back then they weren't controlling it as much, and so I went there because that was what was happening live right then, and that's how you could find stuff. Facebook was always like outdated and stuff. But now that it's being like more controlled, I think obviously like Facebook, and if we just go elsewhere? I mean, everyone, you know, I'm on Steemit. I haven't really used it a lot. I know Silly Rabbit, I was like, oh no, he's going to leave Twitter. But I think he's doing both now. You know, he's on Mastodon.
On Mastodon, yeah.
And I also have Mastodon, but I just haven't gotten into using it. And I think part of it's also by design, is to say, okay, let's censor it so that people don't want to be here, and then that drives all of this conversation underground further. So I can't remember who we were talking to this about, maybe a candidate, or no, it was with Joanne Leon, I think. She does it around the empire. I think that was who it was. Yes, it was, because she was talking about blogs before, and how that was kind of the format, you know, in 2006 or so. But it's important to if you're going to move to doing Mastodon or Steemit, you know, do that, but still post things on Twitter and Facebook, even though they might get buried. It's still there, because if we leave completely, then what? You know, it's on purpose to shut it down. I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah, I got on Mastodon when I saw a Silly Rabbit jump over there. Mm-hmm. I love Pat.
He cracks me up. I swear, I can be in the worst mood, and just the sarcasm is great.
Oh, it's so thick too. When I first saw him on Twitter, back when he was just Pat the Burner, I tried to compliment him because he would always post a really perfect political cartoon that I hadn't seen anywhere else, and he'd have a quote with it, and it fit exactly whatever was like the major Twitter thing of that time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I really love your artwork. Like, do you do this kind of stuff all the time? Can we commission you for things? And he's like, oh no, I just find this shit on the internet. He's like, I found it. I Google search, I find it, I make a quote. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Because the hashtags are just hilarious.
Yeah, he's so funny.
Losing is fine, and GoFundMe for all. I don't know. They're just wonderfully sarcastic.
And I wonder, the real Peter Dow stopped being paid by the Democrats at some point in the recent past. And I kind of wonder if Douche's popularity, or Douche's liaison's popularity, actually did that. That would be fantastic if that's the truth. Yeah,
I hope so. That's so funny. Yeah, has anybody gotten his book?
Not yet.
Okay.
I got the first chapter. But
okay. Yeah. Well, if you're interested, or if you have, I think it's $20 or something. Yeah. Because he's kept us entertained for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, the things trending on Twitter now, it's just obviously very contrived. No. Oh, Josh is here. Or
Hey,
Joshua.
Josh.
Howdy,
Go-
Josh.
Are you outside?
Looks like it.
Okay. I know you have little kids, don't you?
Anyone seen Ryan in a while?
Mm-mm.
Yep. Can't say that I have.
The
Not in the
Huh.
last
one in
week.
Australia, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, is there another Ryan that we know?
No, sorry, I
That's
was
New
just
Zealand
running
or
through trying to run through the list of people. No.
All right.
He's been pretty busy in the last couple of weeks with a lawsuit with his neighbor.
Oh, fun. So, how are you, Josh?
You know, that's like the least
I'm,
efficient form of praxis I could imagine.
Oh, sorry. Here, let's introduce you to people you don't know here. This is Aeolus.
Sure, yeah,
Or,
that'd be
go
good.
ahead. I'll let you guys talk. Gonna do
I'm
it
a-
again?
I'm a basement troll.
Greetings.
I live in my father's basement.
And I
All right. Do worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
We
I'm
heard
glad I
you.
was able to make it on. Thanks for the invite. How are you guys?
We're good.
Pretty good.
Just running through the news and the ridiculousness of Twitter and all kinds of things like that. So do you want to talk about what happened? You were arrested. Do you care to tell it, or have you already told it 1,000 times? Uh-oh. Did you freeze?
Oh, we froze up.
Yeah,
And,
I think it is.
ALS and Mr. Snork, Josh is one of the hosts on Progressive Rampage,
Oh,
for the record.
nice to meet
so.
you.
Well, there, you're well,
Sort of.
Damn.
sort of unfrozen. Must be
Was I
signal.
crazy?
He needs to get a booster to help out the backyard, I think.
Must
There we
Probably
go.
a good idea.
Oh,
Am I good? You guys got me?
Yep,
Yeah,
you do
that
now.
we do.
Sweet. Yeah, I froze for a minute. You guys were coming in a little choppy, so I just dropped my Wi-Fi because outside I think it has a hard time reaching.
Ah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Hey, when you guys are ready for me to kind of ramble a bit, I would like I'd like all of your take.
Have
Ramble.
at it. We've already
Sure.
been rambling a while. It's your turn.
Hey,
That's
so
kind of our style anyway.
a week from tomorrow, I go to justice court. So if you I don't know if you followed anything that happened. Let me do a little rehash. A week from Friday, so August 24th, I showed up to a Mia Love rally. So it was advertised as Mia runs with Mitt. So Mitt Romney's like endorsing, hey, Mia Love is awesome, sweet, she takes corporate cash, we're all awesome. And so Sean Reyes, who's our state district attorney, was there, our lieutenant governor was there, our state auditor was there. So it has like all these Republican heavy hitters there. So I showed up at 6 p.m. and the event starts at 7. And in my iconic, Our Voice shirt and American flag, and I suspect somebody saw me walking by. I was like, I know that motherfucker. That guy's a fucking protester. So within 1 minute, there was a cop about 3 feet from me. And within 2 minutes, he was talking to me. And he basically told me in a nice way, get the fuck off our property if you're going to fly an American flag. Straight up. Like, you can't have this American flag. We think you're a protester. And if you're going to do it, you have to be on public property. Well, I said, well, if I put it away, can I talk to people? My main purpose of being there was to find out motivations for showing up. What encouraged you to show up? What do you think about draining the swamp? What do you think about a 28th constitutional amendment to get money out of politics? Do you think this current rendition of politicians are going to do it themselves? Oh, you don't? Oh, well, hey, check out this app called Our Voice USA. It helps you run for office so you can get money out of politics, right? So I was trying to get about 10 or 20 of those. Literally halfway through, like a minute into my first one is when that cop was there. 2 minutes in, tells me to go away. Well, I told him I was super respectful. I told him I put the flag away, and he said it was fine. And then I was thinking to myself, well, maybe I can go off their property. So there was like a Ren fair going on like across the street. So I was over by the Ren fair. Well, then like 3 of these private security goons come up to me, and they start describing like their boundary lines, again telling me like, if you're going to fly this American flag, you got to get off the property. I was texting people on my phone. I wasn't saying anything, wasn't even interacting with anybody. So I put it away, I end up going into the venue. I get 2 minutes and 15 seconds of Mia Love talking. I pretended like I was a supporter of hers, so I kind of summoned my inner Sacha Baron Cohen and tried to get her to commit to a town hall. And she's just like struggling. I was like, hey, maybe we could have a town hall around 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. So the working class can get off and we can come talk to you, because it's really the working class that you're going to need to win. And she's like, oh well, did you go to one of these early ones? Did you go? What about the Teletown hall? And so, like, if you know anything about her, she actually sanitizes. Anytime she has anything remotely like a town hall, she'll sanitize it in the way of a Teletown hall, where they will look at and they'll pre-screen questions. And she didn't open office hours, where she was only there listening to questions for an hour, and she did it at 4 p.m. So the average person's at work. And so anyway, like I'm kind of annoyed at this point, even though I was really nice to her. I was kind of annoyed because they took away my my whole purpose of being there. So when the event finally started, our lieutenant governor's like, "Hey guys, we're here to support Mia Love, and she's here to save babies." And so I yell out, "So let's do it with contraceptives!" And I'm pretty sure all of them are like, "All right, this motherfucker here, right?"
You're in Mormon territory there.
No,
right?
total. So I'm in Utah County, which is where BYU is. Total
right.
Mormon. And so I let him finish, and then they play a video, and I was just done. I was just done at this point. I was like, I'm fucking annoyed. And so I just started yelling out, "Abolish ICE! Reunite families! Save babies from cages!" Well, after a minute of that, they kicked me out, and which is their right. They didn't realize that I was recording audio. And so you hear it start saying, "Hey guys, I didn't even get a warning. Like, if I quiet down, can I say, nope, you got to go? Well, this is my representative. Nope, you got to go." It's like, I'd rather not. This is a free speech, my friend. First Amendment issue, my friend. And it's like, nope, you got to go. And then like they start pushing me. So I'm like, if this were a gun, you guys would totally support First Amendment. Apologize, right? So within like less than a minute, I'm out the doors. Well, once I'm out the double doors, the same goons who approached me across the street told the cop that they want a cite fee for criminal trespassing. And so it's like
fair?
So I was legally on site because I had a ticket. The event said, while tickets are free, you have to have one to get in. The audio that I recorded with the cop telling me in a nice way to get the fuck off the property specifically says they can ask you to leave. He didn't say they will ask you to leave. So I'm friends with a lady who does Utah naloxone. If you guys have ever heard of naloxone. So she's taken on like big pharma, taken on like all of our state legislature, trying to get people to be like, "Hey, somebody's ODing. How about we give them this naloxone so we can save their life? Wouldn't that be nice?" Mm-hmm. So her lawyer is a former Salt Lake County district attorney by the name of Greg Fairbrush. And so I contacted him. This guy is somebody who's got a lot of media experience. He's taken on like human traffickers. And so I went and spoke to him. I played him all the audio, and he had a big smile on his face. And he's like, "Well, here's the thing, Josh. At this point, what I would be doing is, I plan on calling the Lehigh County prosecutor and just saying, guys, you really don't want to go forward with this. Like, this is a waste of your time." And so I asked him not to do that, specifically because they already kind of ramrodded over my First Amendment right. So I want them to think that I'm just some weak, feckless little bitch that they can just walk over. And then when we show up a week from tomorrow, we're actually going to show up and demand a jury trial, which is going to make them shit their pants.
Nice.
And so demanding a jury trial is going to force this into the light. Like, whoa, what the fuck? And so even if they don't go forward, it's going to give a little bit of exposure to our voice and exposure to these fascists. But if it does go forward, even if I happen to lose in justice court, then I can go to district court. And sure, this will be a penny, out of my pocket. It's already going to cost me. If we go to justice court and demand a jury trial, right there is already $3,000 out of my pocket, which sucks. But if this does blow up, I can get some decent attention, I think, and then turn around and do what's called a 1983 action and sue them for basically mental anguish of, I'm a combat vet. I fucking fought in multiple war zones, and you're going to take my rights away? Like, if anyone has a right to free speech, maybe I do, right?
Right.
And so I think I can really sell this and just turn the screws on all these motherfuckers. So I'm kind of excited. I'm curious, based on my, only my views and my interpretation of kind of what happened and what I've unpacked. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are, And ultimately, I'm sick of rabid and crazy people who are like, Second Amendment no matter what. And I'd really like to get a strong First Amendment win. Because I feel like in this time, we really need a strong First Amendment win.
Yes, we do. And that's scarier to the establishment than guns, for sure.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, free thinkers. Yeah, if you think for yourself, oh, fuck. What? I can't just take... I can't take your money? What?
Yeah. So this Mia I know who she is, but I didn't know much about her. Is she at all trying to run as a populist candidate? Or
no. Well, maybe. Like she really runs on identity politics. She's the very first black conservative woman to ever get elected into office, and so she pushes that.
Right.
It's been over 1,000 days since she's had a true town hall, so it's hard to pretend you're a populist, but Utah's one of the few states that allows straight party voting, and so this is what they rely on. They just rely on straight party voting, and they already know that Republicans are going to come out and vote. And so I'm hoping that my anger can kind of wake up people who aren't prone to voting, because it's really the unlikely voter that turns holes on their heads, like Andrew Gillum, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so hopefully I can get some people like, whoa, fuck. And my lawyer at first was thinking the end of October, maybe beginning of December to have the court date. And I think that might be a little too late, only because we have paper ballots in this state, and we're really fucking good with our paper ballots. And so paper ballots, if we can do mid-October, that's going to disrupt the paper ballots and disrupt people voting early and be like, oh, shit. Like this person doesn't want me to even speak. And who's really disrespecting veterans in the flag? Is it Colin Kaepernick who kneels peacefully, or is it somebody who tells a combat veteran to get the fuck off their property if he's going to fly an American flag, right?
Yeah, wow. I would just be really worried about controlling the message. I mean, get a clear story put together, and because if it does, get any coverage at all, they're going to spin it some other way, or I don't know. I would just have a really clear...
I agree. That's why I'm glad I have an experienced prosecutor who's now a defense attorney because he knows the ins and outs, and he totally knows how to play the media and spin that. So that's going to be big on my side. And so I hope to feed them enough rope to hang themselves. And so that's kind of why, I'm just going to not say anything. I'm not going to ask them to drop the case. And we're just going to show up and drop a bomb on Monday the 10th and see what happens.
Okay. So as soon as you do that, then I would start talking and telling the story as many times as you can. So you have your, your version of what happened as many places as you can. I don't know what other maybe independent media you might have contacts with or other.
So I reached out to Graham Elwood, and he emailed me back saying, "Fuck, dude, that's crazy." But that dude's super busy. But I figured that if I can get Graham, that's a good ping on Jimmy Dore, and to maybe get some Jimmy Dore attention, and then hopefully I can get. I would really like to get even David Packman, some Sam Cedar, maybe not necessarily the biggest guns. Mike Figueredo would be great too.
Mike's good.
And these are guys that it's going to take a while for them to.
I don't know about the other two, but.
Yeah. Well, and then, even here, this is why I came on here to share ideas. Kelly, you fucking rocked the interview with Chris, and I've enjoyed the Speakeasy I was on before. And so, it's good to get these ideas out, and with people who can unpack and even push back and say, well, Josh, maybe you were wrong. And we can discuss that, rather than just say, Josh, you're right. And that's the way things are.
Yeah, we've had some pretty good discussions lately. We had Sander Hicks just signed. He signed CFAR and now CWAC, which is the anti-corruption contract, and that was really cool. I didn't even realize until after he had agreed to come on that he had been on Redacted Tonight before, and he's a big, anti-war. Do you guys know who he is, Sander Hicks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know much about him. I knew his name, but I really didn't. I'm surprised I didn't know more. So that was really cool. And then Brian Witt, who's out in California, he really needs to get on Jimmy Dore's show too, because he's right there, and he's running against Judy Chu. I forget. It's 27th District, California. Anyway, part of LA, right, Brian? Is that right? Right.
Okay. You're talking about Brian Witt? Yeah, he's His district is just outside of Burbank, so it's right in Jimmy Dore's backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, we keep on trucking with talking to good candidates. That's been really exciting. I love that. We talked to Bill Sombrello again. He's got his primary on Tuesday. Yeah, and pretty much anybody that's willing to talk to us isn't a bullshit artist. I mean, they're the real deal. And so far, I don't think we've run across anybody that's not genuine. Because why would they take the time to talk to a little organization like CFAR or CWAC? So anyway, we just keep on going, and of course we wish we were seeing more victories with these candidates, but I just keep saying over and over, I think it's going to take till 2020, and hopefully we'll see some more results then. But you're absolutely right what you said about the non-voters. I say this over and over and over again. That is key. And the election integrity activist John Brakey always mentions that too. That's the biggest group of people is non-voters. And the candidates that talk, that are genuine, the candidates that we talk to, I think are the people that can reach those non-voters, because they're not interested in voting because they think it doesn't matter. These politicians are all the same. So when they hear someone that's speaking their language, then I don't know. Yeah. It's just how do you reach them? That's the trick. So
I think the idea that it doesn't matter is exacerbated when you effectively just have people say, "Vote for me. I'm not that guy." Right?
Yeah. Right.
And so if you actually offer things like, I think healthcare is a human right. Mm-hmm. I think that maybe we should, we have all these discussions about minimum wage. Let's have a discussion about maximum wage, like, Jesse Ventura talks about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And these are ideas that blow people's minds, and it gets them interested. What? I've never heard a politician talk about that. That's interesting. Let me tune in and see what he says.
Hey, Aeolus, what would you say about maximum wage?
Maximum wage?
What's your thought on that? Given what we were...
To be frank, I kind of see it as kind of missing the point, to me personally. Like, I mean, the problem is that if you're dealing, it's kind of my same thing with trying to design a public education system that doesn't that rich people don't have to pay for, don't get to use but have to pay for. It's kind of like if you're trying to work. I'm not saying that capitalism is a good idea, but if you're going to use capitalism as a standpoint, then you're going to need. Then the unfortunate reality is that if you want it to work, you're going to need them to be on board with you. And I simply don't think there's any way that you're going to be able to convince them that to basically pay for other people's best interests against their own. You might be able to convince one or two of that by appealing to their better nature, but as a class, yeah, that's never going to work.
So
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you're right that they're never going to willingly do it. It will take some kicking and screaming. I think part of it is how you phrase it. Maximum wage, the same way that we have maximum speed limit. I'm a great driver. I've driven over the road as a truck driver. I've driven thousands of miles in Kosovo, in Iraq. I've driven for decades in the U.S. I've got a great driving record. Even yet, I can't drive 150 miles an hour on the freeway. Why? Because it's too dangerous. Having an unlimited wage is just simply too dangerous. When you've got Jeff Bezos, who's the pharaoh, and his workers have to urinate in bottles in order to make delivery times, in order to fulfill the requests at the fulfillment centers. I think the average person is going to say, you know what, that's fucked up. And even if you don't get people to come out and say, well, you know what, you're right, let's immediately go towards a maximum wage or a maximum wage cap, I think it starts a conversation in much the same way that while Bernie Sanders lost an election, he kind of won the culture war there, right? And so that's kind of what you do is you earworm somebody to where they just can't get that idea out of their head. And you just package it in a way where it's hard to fight back.
From an economic perspective, I took some economics in Germany, and in one of the lectures, I love this. It was my favorite one. Can we afford millionaires and billionaires on a planet with finite resources. And at the end of the lecture, you come to the conclusion, no, you actually can't. And the reason for that is that, if you want to instill opportunity into the world for pretty much everyone, you can't have people at the top who at the same time who have the ability to prevent opportunity. And that, because that's exactly what they do. As soon as they have more than they need, they start to hinder others' ability to get to that same position. And it's a vicious cycle. So the truth is, we can't afford millionaires and billionaires on a planet like this with finite resources. We can't.
Millionaires maybe. Like I'm not inherently against millionaires. Like I like capitalism in the sense that it vastly rewards people who are visionaries. They can see a vacuum and they fill it with a good or service, and they get vastly rewarded. But where we need some sort of mechanisms of control, like with democratic socialism, is just make sure that that reward doesn't become parasitic. In the same way of, now I have all this money, and then I'm going to buy off these politicians that are going to say, you know what, we're no longer going to trade with this country for steel. Then steel prices plummet, and then you buy up all the steel stock, and then say, oh, guess what? Hey, we can go ahead and we can trade with that country again, and then the prices go right back up, and all of a sudden I made $400 million by doing nothing but buying off a politician. And,
right, but here's my point from a psychological perspective.
And so, and then they turn around for tax rebates they get, stock buybacks, and just make the system even worse. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, but oh no, go ahead, sir.
Economically, I don't like an idea of a maximum pay. However, I would like to see, instead of a maximum pay, a natural logarithmic tax. Now,
okay.
Since Aeolus, I suspect, is better at math than I am. A natural log actually is a mathematical graph that goes up like this. So it's possible that no matter how much better you get, you could still earn a little bit more. The more and more you make, the harder and harder it gets to make that next dollar. And eventually, over time, it almost starts to look like it flattens out. Theoretically, it starts to get so difficult to make money that you'd have to find other ways. In the past, we did that by allowing certain deductions that would, if you did them, make some type of effort to the public that you could actually save a little bit more of your money. And that's not so bad, but the natural log is this wonderful formula that if you're less than parity and you had a logarithm as your basis for the tax, then you would actually get a subsidy for living. Because
okay, I got you. Right.
It crosses over from being positive to negative. And it's a formula that it's extremely well established. So it's not a mathematical theory. Computers can calculate it easy. There have been charts for years to allow people to use the natural logarithm. And it has the word natural in it. So you should be able to satisfy everybody. And so what I prefer, rather than the, like I said, a limit on it, is that we have a natural logarithmic tax.
So I had this argument with my Republican grandfather, and this is one of the craziest arguments. It was just like, should he believed in free market, and I'm like, well, should the CEO be making 1,000% more? And he's like, sure, why not? It's just like, okay, there's no winning this, But I think the idea of a maximum wage that sounds, how do I put this? Remember when Brian Witt was on and he said, a lot of people aren't going to go for socialism. I remember kind of going, what is he going to say here? Like, it was kind of a weird moment. And he said, but democratic socialism is a different thing. If we have these regulations, we still have capitalism, but we have these rules and regulations in place. I mean, the whole reason that Jeff Bezos has gotten so ridiculously rich is because we don't have those those brakes on things. So I think if rather than this like arbitrary, cap, like you can't make any more than this, we fix the things that led to that like obscene wealth, because obviously you didn't get there from like, just really great hard work. I mean, obviously that's from exploiting workers, not offering, health care, making your workers turn to, welfare. So I think it sounds less scary, and it just makes more sense. You fix those problems that all the deregulation that happened, put back in place, I guess is what I mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense.
I mean, not that I'm against it, but I just think it would go over better. It's like, yeah, I don't know.
What about maintaining the difference between the bottom and the top? Like they always like to throw the chart out there of the different countries and the CEO pay versus the lowest paid worker, and that there's a percentage rate. So why not put a cap on that and say you can't go over 75% or you can't go over 110% or something?
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe I like the curve idea better, though, to be honest, Mitch.
I prefer them both.
I like the log, but yeah, just something to restrict so that if you want to make more, you need to pay them more. That's the only way that you can rise up, and like it's kind of like making it harder to make another buck, right?
So that's a fantastic idea, and probably better than a maximum wage. I like that,
because if there's this incentive to keep doing better.
Yeah, right.
But on the other hand, the
capital key,
this ratio of the maximum worker to the minimum, that's still very important. And again, I'm from the manufacturing world, working with people and structures of hierarchies, of management. So we had very strict rules at some of the companies I was at that were very successful.
Yeah, that
did not have the I worked more than just American companies, and they did not have these huge salaries paid to the CEOs. And they were very successful companies. So it doesn't have to be a huge salary to be excessive. And when they got to be a very large company with many levels of people, so they had a certain ratio of how much you could get paid versus the people below you. Of something like you had to have between 7 to 14 people working underneath you, and you got half of your total everything that they made.
I like that one.
We need to call it the Yertle the Turtle something. I always think of Yertle the Turtle. See that? Can you read that? I should just share the screen, but it says, I know up on top you are seeing great sights, but down here on the bottom, we too should have rights. Anyway, I always think of Yertle the Turtle.
And then there's also that option of having a what do they call it? A collective, right? Where the workers are shareholders in the company that they work for. That there's one in Spain that's like one of the most productive ones in the world.
Mandragon.
Yeah, right. And even in Colorado, in Boulder, they have a couple of breweries that run that way, and they're like completely successful. They have no problems. The workers love it. They have longevity, all of that. And I'm not saying that every company has to have that kind of democracy, but we even mentioned in the podcast that the place we spend the most of our time, those of us who work 40 plus hours a week, is in the one place where you don't get to have a say, unless you're on top, of course. So why not live in it? If we're going to live in a republic that likes to practice democracy, why not bring that into the workplace in the first place? Everybody could make more money that way too.
Now, in German companies, you must have 50% of your labor represented on the board.
See? But in America, no seat at the table.
You know what that's actually called?
Yeah.
It's called socialism.
I know.
Yeah. The Grange movement in Illinois, Grange, really got cooperatives going. A lot of the farmers out in Iowa, Illinois, they belong to what are called co-ops.
Yeah, that was the word I couldn't think of. Yeah.
And these co-ops, they manage, like, it's hard to have a large processing facility for grains and storing them, arranging it to get on trucks, the trains to get out. So the co-op does this for all the farmers. They all own it together. That way they don't get charged huge amounts for it. And it's pretty profitable for them. This stuff gets done. They get their product about, Americans are fed, most of us. some of us, but it gets out there and goes. So this Grange system, if you really want to look up collective in a capitalist society, Grange is this place to start.
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
There's a worker-owned grocery store here in Utah called Winco. I'm not sure if they are across other states, but often they have prices lower than Walmart, and they still turn a profit because they're not trying to pay CEOs obscene profits. They're trying to make sure that people, make living wages, and those people who are making living wages are also, stockholders and shareholders, and they're the average, just regular workers. And I like the idea maybe of a fixed percentage between the lowest paid worker and the highest paid, the CEO, as opposed to maybe a maximum wage. I think you convinced me there, Chris. That might actually go over better. And I think sports metaphors actually work real well with right wingers. And if you talk about if the coach is making all the money and the players don't make any money, what happens? They get hurt. They're fucked. And then how are you going to keep up with a great team? Not only that, but if you look at the NFL, as I understand, the average team gets about the same amount of money in order for them to be competitive. Otherwise, you get what the Major League Baseball has, MLB, and you've got one player making the same amount of money as the entire Pittsburgh Pirate, roster. When you're looking at the New York
Yanks, right?
Yanks. Thank you. Yeah, I'm talking about sports metaphors. I'm getting my sports teams wrong. That's so awesome. So I think the average right winger will be like, okay, well, yeah, I see your point here, and hopefully with reasonable people out on news or podcasts, we can spread that it's less about I have the right answer and more about I have a good idea. Help me make my idea better by challenging it or adding to it.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of money, I just thought if anybody happen to be watching that don't know about what you guys do, I think one of the reasons that we get along so well from our first meeting is that we're all trying to do stuff like without money involved. So right. You guys, yeah. I wish Corey was here. Oh wait, I didn't send him a link. That might be why. But I know that was really important to him in building the app and everything, that he wanted a free tool for everyone to be able to use. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that, or what the latest is with Our Voice? Are you trying to raise money at all for?
Oh, we're constantly trying to raise money. Well, we actually just recently switched ourselves from a 501c4 that has allows for unlimited funding, but we can have dark money. We switched that out, and also donations weren't tax deductible, and we became a 501c3 charity. So now donations are tax deductible to us. We operate out of pocket. We do accept donations. People don't donate much, probably because I'm a bit of a crappy marketer. But we just don't push the donation link like a lot of other people do. We push our product that we want people to have, because our goal isn't to raise money. Our goal is to put an app in the hands of every individual in the United States so they can contact the representatives and stay engaged in the political process. And our other goal is we've created a canvassing feature on the app that takes away one of the biggest barriers to entry to run for office, which is having to go and pay NPG Van or some other company money to be able to go and door knock with technology in your hand. Now, we don't have all of the information that was collected in the past to be able to provide people, but what we do offer is an opportunity to own all of the data that you collect and share it however you wish, and we have no control over that. And we call it decentralized data. So that way you can make up your entire canvassing thing. You can link to people all across the country with this. You can get people to do phone banking canvassing with this app without ever having actually met them. You can verify them through different methods using Facebook and Google. And so we're basically trying to change the way that people run their campaigns so that folks like you and me, who may not have a corporation behind us or $100 million to throw at it, could run for some kind of national or state or local office. And so anyway, I think it normally costs $20,000 to $30,000 to get the other kinds of applications on your phone, and this is free, 100%.
Well, or you have to pay the parties themselves. So
yeah,
often like the Democratic and Republican parties will have access to MPG Van, and they'll effectively lease you access. And so you're paying them like a monthly fee for every month that you're using it. You are also, getting the data from them. And one of the great things about Our Voice is that we're brokers of data. We don't even own your data. So if you went out canvassing, Kelly, and you went ahead and shared your form that you created and the questions that you wanted to canvass people on, and then you shared it with Brian, well, Brian would then have the child of your form, which means that he can't share that information with anyone, but he can upload it to you. And then you own that data. And so you can sell that data, you can give that data to whoever you want. And one thing that is really useful with the app as well is that if you are a precinct chair, like I am, you can usually have access to voter data through whether it be the county clerk or Secretary of State, and you can get information that Corey is now allowed to be able to upload, as I understand, through Excel format or CSV.
CSV, yeah. And we should make the major point here that though Josh and I are also on a podcast and we have our own opinions, and Josh so eloquently puts at the beginning of every one of our goddamn podcasts that we have our own opinions and we wear our thoughts on our sleeve, but we also work for a non-partisan, not bipartisan, but non-partisan organization. Our Voice, the app, is available to everyone. If you want to run Satan, you can use the Our Voice app. I don't care. If you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent socialist, it's for you, so that you can have people go out there and represent yourself. Because one thing we forget in this country is that it's not about changing the narrative to the one that you have in your head. It's about accepting the fact that you're sharing this country with over 300 million other people who all think differently about the world. Right. And what's better than having a bunch of corporatists who want to force feed us too little, like a black and white world where we're realizing, through like the sexual revolution, we have a spectrum of people now, and we need a spectrum of representatives. So we need people who are just like us, representing just like us. And so anyway, that's what this is for.
Do you guys remember when we had, there was this woman that went on this tirade against CFAR and against Our Voice, saying that we were Russian bots or something?
Yes, I do.
And they pointed out that because you guys had, I think Corey had posted something, I think it was just an example of, what was on the app, but somewhere in there it had...
I posted a video of me looking up Mitch McConnell.
Yes, that was it. That's right. And so they just assumed, they have something about Mitch McConnell on here. And I thought, how complicated is it to understand? This is just an app with all the candidates on. And furthermore, what if, let's just say, there's somebody who's always voted Republican, but they're kind of a low info voter, and they go and they look at the app and they go, oh, wait, I can't remember if you have all this information in there, but like what they voted for before, things like that. Is that going to be...
Right now we have click-through links that go to other sites like... I'm drawing a blank right now, but there's a couple of them that are actual nonpartisan sites that tell you what people's voting records were. Ballotpedia, we have a link that goes through that. Okay. We don't have the APIs on there yet, but we do have links available for doing your own research on all these people.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I thought, well, okay, this person who was obviously a whatever Dem Hillary kind of person, but okay, so maybe that voter. First of all, they should be able to vote for whoever they want, but maybe they will look at it and go, oh, wait, I don't want to vote for that guy because here's all this information on his voting record right at their fingertips. So it's an educational thing. It's a service. And it was just crazy the way the person responded. I think we ended up...
well, and that was one of 3 videos short little usage videos I made. The other ones were an independent and a Democrat. I just happened to do that with a Republican, but,
Right.
People see what they want to see.
How dare you not have 3 videos of my tribe, Chris?
Yes, right. Yeah, we still did. I think things kind of stalled out with getting the CFAR candidates onto the app. We'll have to. If there's obviously going to be a lot more work that's going to continue past. Yeah,
we had some technical difficulties, and there is a new small form Mac computer being purchased so that we can continue to make the updates.
Now, I have a question.
Seriously, it was just physical difficulty. Yeah.
How many people do you guys have involved in the whole organization?
Well, active right now, I would have to say 7.
That's
However, we
beautiful.
have loosely associated people in excess of like 30 or 40. It's just we haven't heard from them in a while. Volunteers like to show up, and they like to have a lot of chutzpah, and they really want to get active, and then their life takes them over again. Because just like everyone else, we all have to work and put food on the table. So I don't even blame folks for showing up and disappearing. I mean, that's how I had been in the past. This is the first thing that I actually stuck with for quite a long time, and it's partly because of the people that are involved, like Josh and like Corey and Corey, the Coreys, Lady Corey and Mr. Corey.
Yep.
So we're always open for new people to come and volunteer with us. But if you can't, we understand. We've automated a whole lot of the different functions that used to be operated by human work. And maybe that could be a topic you guys could talk about too, is automation destroying jobs. But ultimately, but we just have the one goal, is to get everybody to have this app and then stop putting.
There's a local candidate here in Utah who used the app, and the feedback that he gave me and Corey was that he got a lot more volunteer help by being able to use like Facebook Messenger and saying, hey guys, here's a free app. You know, I know that you want to volunteer, but you don't have a lot of time. What if you download this app? I'll share this form with you. You just go knock on 5 or 6 of your neighbor's door and just share this information from me. That's all I ask. And so it's actually a really useful way to be able to kind of cross-pollinate and be in more than one place at one time, and have people who really aren't motivated to put on a cape and go save the world, but are motivated to at least do something, and then they can feel successful. And then if you can then breed that and say, fuck man, you got me 10 names, thanks man, that this can help in XYZ way, or even I didn't need, you're the first person, even if they're not first person, really help me out with this way. This is really whatever you do to really help lift up these volunteers and make them feel good about it and make them feel special, is really a great way to, one, win them to your side, and then two, keep that same recipe successful.
Well, the reason I asked actually about how big your organization is because this is another thing John Brakey said to me, was like, the best way, or whatever, there's that quote about the way to mess up something is, form a committee or something. And I think partly because there's so much suspicion, and rightfully so, of different groups, whether it's Our Revolution, and like who's really funding them and that sort of thing. And then when the bigger it gets, I think it's kind of harder to keep how do I say this without sounding paranoid? I have some information I won't share on live stream about some organizations that there seem to be some probably purposeful sabotage going on. So it's like, how do you keep that? Do what? What are you?
Sorry, I thought this was we were taking a rib at Euchre.
Of what?
The Justice Democrats.
Oh. Well, I mean, yeah, there was that whole stink, and then people are just very wary of that. Yeah. But I can't really speak on it because it's not something I want to do live. But yeah, I mean, this happens all the time. We know this happens, and the bigger an organization gets, and the more if there's a lot of money involved, or it just gets out of hand. So I think it's good to have these small groups that don't have a lot of money and don't have a lot of people that could sort of, I guess, sabotage things. I don't know. I wish I could say more, but anyway.
We appreciate the compliment, but I will throw out there, we still accept donations even though we don't have a lot of money.
Right.
Well, and I
promise not to get corrupt.
I think the most important thing is, regardless of how big you get, you need to surround yourself with people who will call you on your shit, and constantly remind yourself to be open to that. If you need to go, once a month, twice a month, or once every 6 months, go on a hiatus, take some shrooms, figure out, where you actually stand in life, and figure out what your impetus is. And, it's hard to, when you're on psychotropic drugs, it's hard to hide your innermost demons and your innermost thoughts from yourselves. And don't be inspired by self-discovery. Don't be afraid of it. And then constantly remind yourself that, as cliche as it is, Socrates was the smartest person in the world because he knew that he knew not. And while, there are times that I act very brash, I act very self-centered, there's a reason for that as well. I think it was, I'm going to draw a blank on the guy who quoted it. But effectively he says, the problem with the world today is that, fools are completely full of confidence, while the wise, are constantly full of doubts. And so I try to flip that paradigm. And while I'm full of doubts, I try not to let you know that I'm full of doubts. And sometimes I put on a show of bravado, so you say, wow, this motherfucker really knows what he's talking about. And so sometimes it's just about trying to get people to follow that guy with his chest puffed out, who's walking real fast. Because if there's one thing I learned when I was in the Army, if I walk around slow and kind of look around, kind of scratch my head, immediately you're like, Cameron, the fuck over here. There's a detail for you to do. Otherwise, if I walk with a purpose, like, this motherfucker knows, this motherfucker's doing something. I'm gonna let him, I'm gonna leave him alone. And so I think that's also what inspires a lot of people to vote for a buffoon like Trump, because he inspires confidence because he acts confident. And so surely somebody who's that confident knows what he's doing, and he's got an ulterior motive. And if ultimately you act that way, but your end goal is to add to the human condition, while that is somewhat Machiavellian in that you're kind of saying that the ends justify the means, why is it only assholes can be Machiavellian? Why can't we have an ends justify the means, that your purity test is that it adds to the human condition, that there's a net positive value as opposed to a net negative?
I'm afraid Trump is working on a fake it till you break it methodology.
Right? Yeah, totally. And so I had a large argument with my brother the other day where he was like, dude, you're Machiavellian. It's like, so the fuck what? Like, so I'm a Satanist. Not that I am a Satanist, but like, why should I be scared of that? That's like somebody saying you're a socialist. And the fuck does that even mean? Like, I get that Machiavelli was an asshole, and Machiavellianism is scary, which is why it's even more important to surround yourself with, people like Chris who will say, Josh, this shit's partisan as fuck. I can't publish this. Right?
Which just recently happened.
Yeah, and so it's good.
I pride myself in being Josh's editor, and I am very happy to have someone like Josh to kick me in the pants and tell me to take that extra step, which happens on a constant basis between us, and I think it helps us both grow.
Nice.
If someone could be a fly on the wall in the messenger chats that we've had, they'd probably just say I was an asshole. But.
Well, we're both assholes, man, but we work well together, and so too often people think in ideas of right and wrong as opposed to just a sliding scale of adding to the human condition, helping the working class, and adding a net positive value where you go.
Yeah.
Now you guys have the is it linked right on the Our Voice page? Your publication where you have lots of different writers, right?
Yeah, so I'm also the editor of the blog called Speak Our Voice. That's
right.
where I started out when I first joined up. And we accept poetry, op-eds, research papers, anything you want to publish that has some kind of socio-political aspect to it, and it has to be in your own voice. I do edit, but the only thing I'm editing is like, shit grammar and bad punctuation. Otherwise, everything that shows up in there is the person's thoughts and feelings.
I know somebody,
and I add some art.
I need to tell to send you something. A guy named Greg Gupton. He used to come to our Burnstorm parties all the time. He's like 23 or 24. Really, really smart guy. Has a lot to say. But just send me stuff that he's written, and I'm like, can I pass it on? And he's like, no, I've got to edit it, a bunch more times.
Oh, no, I get such raw stuff. And actually, Josh has progressed in the stuff that he sends me. But literally, people that have never written anything before have contributed to us, and I pretty it up. I mean, we got a minimum of 300 words, but actually even a poet sent me some raps, and I think it was less than that, but it was good looking.
Okay, I'm gonna tell him that he should send stuff to you.
But yeah, and nothing on there reflects what Our Voice USA is all about, because we are nonpartisan. However, we're trying to provide a space for people to use their voice.
Right.
So I don't get too many Republicans posting there, but I have had a few. One guy, Will Markham, who is one of the loose associations with the group, he's part of Our Voice but doesn't actually function much. But in the past, during the steering committee, he contributed a work that is on our Medium presence. And we've stopped posting to Medium because Medium's now charging people after they read a couple of things, and we just figured we're free, that shouldn't cost money. But we left our stuff up there anyway for people to read. And so he has one that's called How to Speak Progressive to a Republican, because he is one of the believers that progressivism doesn't have to be leftist. It's more of
absolutely.
It's a nebulous ideology about not sticking to the past or trying to infringe on other people's rights because your social beliefs are different. So,
right.
Anyway.
I agree. Well,
yeah, we take all sorts of work.
I realized after I said that about keeping a group small that it almost sounds like, I don't mean it to be like, I mean, it should be for everyone, you know, anybody that wants to be involved, you know, as volunteers. I guess having, again, I don't want to name names of organizations and groups, but I've seen, you know, what can kind of happen in this sort of the drama that happens.
Well, in our infancy, we were founded by Sam Ronan, and that was called Our Voice Initiative, and that since has been shut down, and we've re-established ourselves as Our Voice USA. So we're no longer in Ohio either; we're in Maine now, Portland, Maine, and or I guess if you want to send hate mail or something, and. And when we first started out, we had, I think, like 20 or 30 active people, and we would have these Zoom chats that were like 3 times the size of the biggest one I think you might have had for Speakeasy, and just people talking over each other and everyone having a check-in. And what turned out is we actually found infiltrators, or at least we speculate that they were, because they disappeared as soon as we tried to confront them. But they were people who, when researched, had ties to the DNC, and were kind of they were deleting things that we would put up. They would lock people out of the website. The more people you bring in, the greater you have the chance of falling apart. And we instituted an NDA method at one point, having people sign something that was like a non-compete for 3 years. And anyway, those of us who are on the board now are totally against that. We've already released everybody out of their NDAs, and we don't do that shit any longer. So, yeah, we're very open. But
yeah, well, I think you know, Brian and I were talking about how you guys are just really on the same page where we are on so many things, including on how to run stuff and to do it like with as little money as possible, and just, I don't know, it's cool.
It's funny when you set that precedence, how much open source technology you can find access to. The graphics we make, we use Inkscape, which is open source. All of the writing I do, I'm using LibreOffice. We're using different free platforms to try to get our information out there. All of the code for the app is on GitHub, and it's copyleft. People are allowed to just directly contribute, and if it meets our needs and stuff, Corey goes ahead and pushes the update through. So we've made it so people can help and they don't actually have to sign on.
Nice.
Would be great, you know.
Yeah, because you just end up spending all your time with these interpersonal stuff, things that happen, and it's just a total waste of time. So yeah, got to keep your eye on the ball.
Yep.
Keep it small, I think. But yeah, I don't know.
Well,
So,
I wonder if the end game is never to remain super small, but I think you need to solidify your bylaws while you're very small, and you have people that you trust.
Yeah.
And that way you protect yourself as a business and as an entity. So one asshole can't just come in like a Tasmanian devil and just destroy all the hard work that you've done.
Oh yeah, which is why we wrote those the way we did.
Right.
They're also available on the website if anyone wants to read them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there really are situations where, I mean, people come in to sabotage things on purpose, You know,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, corporate spies. I mean,
mhm.
why wouldn't they exist to try to
Right.
squash the left?
Right,
And especially, I mean, if you allow big money to stay in politics and there to be a barrier to entry, then you obviously have more control over the narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you
Right.
start getting crazy people in there who want to actually scream and shout in the middle of a Senate session, or like, they're not going to make senator, but in the House of Representatives anyway,
Mm-hmm.
you disrupt the fabric that they're trying so hard to weave.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. Well, we actually CWAC, Candidates with a Contract, is a 501c3. So yeah, I guess that's
Yeah, same
where
deal.
that's what you
Oh,
were before. Okay.
No, that's what we are now.
Oh, 501c. Oh wait, no,
A
no, no. I'm
C3,
sorry.
yeah.
No, CWAC is 501c4. I'm sorry. I have
I
that
see.
backwards. Okay. Yeah.
Well, we're also not allowed. I mean, because we're a C3, another reason why we switched there. Well, we have to make all donations transparent, which is fantastic. We were doing that anyway, but it limits anyone coming in after us. It limits their ability to engage politically because we're literally not allowed to be for any party or candidate because of our filing.
Right.
So it guarantees that we'll be focused on civic activity rather than trying to promote one side or the other, no matter what our personal views might be. So that was another reason why we did. It's like a fail-safe, you know.
Yeah, I do. I guess I do have some concerns going forward about that, about the money, that what could happen, but we'll have to see. I didn't fully understand when I first came on board what all the differences were between the 501c3 and 4.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh no, we learned it trial and error.
Oh, okay.
None of us are professionals in these, except for Corey, of course, who's writing the app. He actually does that for a living, but and actually he doesn't even do
Dude,
that
that
particular
motherfucker is
thing.
amazing.
But
So-
yeah, no, genius. I love him.
Yeah, lots of hard work.
Yeah,
for
well, and
no
what's
pay.
funny about Corey is I first met Corey at a Wolfpack meet and greet, and so like I came from the Capitol, I was just protesting, so I'm totally on the endorphin rush, and I think I probably had my bullhorn, so I said a bunch of bullshit, and so I'm really jazzing, and I'm just going whirling, a mile a minute, and he told me later on that he was thinking, this is a guy I got to get to know. And then ever since then, like he and I are very polar opposites. He's likely far smarter than I am. He's very reserved. He thinks about what he says long before he says what he says, whereas I think about what I say about a half a second before I say it, and I try to use that kind of seat in my pants to because I'm so in tune with kind of who I am. Just that seat in my pants can help kind of flow, guide the fire hose, if you will. But he often can pull me back down to earth a bit, because there are definitely times I try to drink from the fire hose and he tries to turn that faucet down a bit. But it's interesting what sorts of environments you meet people. And so Corey and we probably live about 20 minutes apart. Sometimes I'll just go over to his house and we'll kind of talk shop, catch up, figure out, what's been going on, which is a little bit nicer than just over the phone. It adds that human connection, especially since like this guy's a legit nerd. And by nerd, I mean like he's smarter than the average person. And where I'm more of a geek, I can throw out some silver dollar words, and I'm a pretty smart guy and quick on my feet, but man, this guy's amazing. And it's nice to get somebody like that, and somebody who is shy and likely probably doesn't get talked up a lot. Again, the importance of making somebody feel special who normally does not make themselves feel special, and the magic that they can fucking create. Holy shit. Like, our voice app is insane. And the guy single-handedly fucking built it. And it's quite impressive.
Yeah, a lot of times the people behind the scenes, they don't get the credit right as much as they should. But so yeah, how did you guys actually, because you're in Maine, Chris, how did you guys meet? I guess it was all online.
I was recruited. Sam Ronan showed up on Twitter, and he started making posts, and I didn't even know who he was until he tried to run for the DNC and the DNC chair. And I don't know. I liked that moment because it was somebody actually standing up and saying stuff that I was saying to all of these people who refused to say it. And, you know, I didn't have any thought in my head that he was going to win, but the very fact that he was on CNN and saying it was fantastic. Now, say what you want about him, but that moment in time, he was a draw for everybody who was interested in making change. And so he had this thing, and he basically put a tweet out, and it said, anybody who just started following me, do I have any writers in the audience? And I was like, I've written some things. He's like, great, sign up. He's like, do I have any people who know how to do technology? And a couple other folks, you know, would chime in and DM him. And he's like, great, sign up. And he just signed all these people up and created this thing. And he's moved on to go do some other stuff. He wants to be more candidate focused. He wants to be more partisan with his assisting the grassroots. And the rest of us wanted to move on to make it about civics. And so that's why we split ways at that point. So he's no longer part of the organization, even though he founded it.
Right. Okay. So I have a question about, you mentioned Wolfpack. Now this is again another example of drama that went on within these groups, and I still don't even know what the story was, but I wondered if any of you guys know. When I was at Unrig the System thing in New Orleans, there was a panel discussion, and it had a woman from Common Cause there, and some people like in the audience like went nuts on her. It was something to do with Wolfpack and Common Cause. Like I think she was in Arizona. Like there was I don't know, some big drama between those two groups. Anybody know anything about that? I don't know.
I don't know. I suspect it probably has to do with Jank. A lot of people have a problem with Jank Uger.
Right.
I think for somebody who is definitely closer to center than I am, I really like his ideas. I like the way that he has a real pulse on the establishment. I definitely, my heart beats more Jimmy Dore than it beats Jank Uger, but I still like to listen to him. In much the same way that I wish that Neil deGrasse Tyson was far more radical than he was, but fuck, I really enjoy just sitting down and listen to the stuff that he says.
Have you noticed that he's got a new book coming out?
No. Which one?
Neil has a new book coming out where he goes after scientists working for the military-industrial complex.
Oh.
Nice.
What?
Like a research expose kind of thing?
Yes, I think that's going to be really interesting.
Wow. I hope he doesn't attack me.
I was quite surprised. It's something I've been wanting to see as well.
Well, I have to be honest. I lost any respect for Jank Uger at the DNC week. I mean, that was when the immediate pivot to all stupid Trump stories all the time, and the way I saw it at the time was, okay, I've got another choice, and that's voting Green Party, which I did. My first vote ever was Green Party for Ralph Nader. But you know, that was just terrible. I couldn't believe TYT went that way. I mean, obviously I don't know, I guess I kind of got the feeling like Jank Uger didn't want TYT to be blamed for Hillary losing, or I mean, he decided to get behind that and try to sort of move everyone that way. But you know, they could have done that and still covered things, you know, but there was just kind of silence about the Green Party.
Well, they kind of did, but they kind of didn't know. It was kind of like how everyone got split halfway between every direction, and well, that's really not someplace you want to be dragging, because not only are you pissing off the people that you're trying to uproot, but you're also pissing off the people who are supposed to be standing by you, and that's never a position you want to be founding yourself in.
Yeah, like when you're saying that you don't need Democrats to vote for you because for every one of those you lose, you gain 5 moderate Republicans, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just
So,
do what?
you know, there's a video of Jank losing his shit, and it really reminds me of Jimmy Dore. Like, he is losing his fucking mind at how incompetent Hillary Clinton is and how fucking independent, and that this is why we told you about fucking Hillary Clinton. And
When
it was
was
so
that?
inspiring, and it was awesome.
Was
And
that-
so I think it was literally the night of the election.
It
Once
was
the
the night of
results
the election.
came in,
I remember
Yeah.
and he just lost his. And the thing is where I still have a lot of respect for TYT and Jank is if you look up TYT, Hillary Clinton, Rosetta Stone, just look up those keywords on YouTube, and it's
Okay.
gonna blow your fucking mind because no corporate media was looking that up, and it was impressive. And so I think that Jank is much more of a Bernie Sanders type of guy, a little bit more energetic, a little bit more enthusiastic in some ways. But I think that he understands that he can play the Trump is a dummy and still make money. That said, like I have no bones about somebody who picks at Jank. I've got no dog in that fight. I personally like him, but if you want to rail against him, that's totally cool with me too.
It's just I appreciated Jimmy Dore at that point a lot. Like to me, it just was I felt like it was just an effort to make everyone fall in line, and that it pissed me off.
Speaking
But,
of friction with TYT, did anyone see the shouting match between him and Steve-O?
Yeah, I saw part of it. Yeah.
Wait, shouting match between who and Steve-O?
Jimmy Dore.
Jimmy Dore and
Steve-O, rather.
Yeah. They had a shouting match on Aggressive Progressive over Alex Jones. Alex Jones' rather forced departure from social media.
I guess my feeling was just it wasn't.
I mean, let's be honest. Jimmy Dore, as much as I love him, he's not somebody who should be at the forefront of any kind of intellectual debate whatsoever. I'm
okay with that comment.
Who really does like his content, but in order to go into debate, there's a certain degree of temperament and restraint that you have to be able to exercise before going ballistic, and that's not Jimmy's forte, and that's not me speaking ill of him, trying to speak ill of him, because I do think that passion is useful somewhere. I just don't think in terms of trying to have a constructive intellectual commentary, it's particularly productive to be bringing yourself to the boiling point.
I think he's attempting. It seems to me like he's attempting to strike a balance between running a business and having that kind of position that he takes. But I see what you're saying, Elias. It's like he's going over the top for the business. It seems that these days.
No,
I'm not trying to knock Jimmy Dore. I like him, but I don't know. Sometimes it seems like he's doing it for the clicks, and it's not really real.
I don't think it's for the clicks. I genuinely think that's genuinely the kind of person he is, and that's I've watched his commentary for long enough to see him getting like progressively angrier over time, and that's not a transition you can really fake. I do think that anger is real. I think what it seemed like to me was less manufactured outrage as much as it was letting himself boil over in a way that, I'll be honest, was not helpful. It was not helpful to the conversation that was trying to be had at that point. And regardless of my personal opinion about Steve-O or his position, which I personally think he's wrong on, full stop. And the fact that he's trying to play this cheeky little game about being a leftist and a capitalist at the same time, I have words about that, but I'm not going to say them here. Because the bigger point is that when you're dealing with a giant social media company that has a monopoly on those institutions, and it's basically become the primary public forum on which we debate, discuss, and share information about the primary issues of today, it is extremely dangerous for them to have sole monopolistic power over who gets to speak on their platforms and who doesn't. And that's something that I don't think we can simply escape from. Now, let me be clear here. I'm not trying to defend Alex Jones on this, nor am I trying to defend somebody like the Amazing Atheist. Frankly, those two can go fuck themselves for the amount of damage that they've caused to other people with their words and through their actions. But let me be honest. Those two should have been banned a long fucking time ago. This is not something that they should have been banned for just today. It's like, oh yeah, I guess we should have done something about those guys here. Yoink! That's not how this works. And the fact that we are, and I'll be honest, I don't particularly care about the Amazing Atheist. I don't care about Alex Jones. I do care that. I do, however, care that they have been yanked from that platform, not because the community revolted against the social media companies and demanded their heads on the platter. They did this on their own fucking volition, which on it without any recourse, without any trial or substantive adversarial process given. That is a huge problem, especially when dealing with a company with as much power, with companies with as much power as Twitter, as Google, as Facebook. Well, that cannot be the standard by which we all play on, because regardless of what you may think, especially if you're on the left, that's the last place you want to be, because that's who they're going to shut down once they get decided. Because, if a fascist takes over, well, shit.
Well,
I better hope that I can stay on his good graces then. A leftist goes in, that's their heads.
Yeah, it goes back to that list quite a long time ago from, I think it was Prop or Not, or something. It was an article in The Intercept, and they had listed all these, it was like Common Dreams and Truth Dig and a bunch of other things, is that they should be banned also. It was, that the voices of dissent on the left get in that too. But about like the kind of loud, boisterous voices, I think, as a former Bill Maher fan, and I think now I realize I really watched that more to watch the panel discussions. I really did.
That's literally the only reason I watched.
He got so many good guests on there.
He used to. But that was another thing that changed over time. I felt like it became more of an echo chamber. And I always thought he was an asshole, but some of the new rules and stuff were funny. But back when I was in that mindset of just hate the right, I think a lot of people are still there. Not seeing how a show like Bill Maher's really just perpetuates the neoliberal crap.
Well,
but anyway.
Here's the beauty of Bill Maher. He gets a conservative on to enable his own racist predilections. And then he gets liberals on to satiate everything else. And that's the beauty of Bill Maher's program, is that he convinces people that they are better human beings than they actually are, all the while simultaneously and conveniently slipping cultural justification for the next wars against brown people that who the fuck actually cares about.
Well put.
He's going to be here sometime this month, I think end of September at DPAC, which is a local...
Which is why I don't have very much sympathy when he gets protested by students at the university city he tries to perform at.
Well, I saw it on Facebook and I reported it as offensive because I didn't want to see it. Anyway, so but I, as a former Bill Maher fan, and then I kind of realized, like, I started watching TYT during the primaries, and I'm like, here's, it's that same kind of character in Jank, this boisterous, loud, obnoxious, sorry, but that we want someone that's going to just cut through the shit and tell it like it is, and it's that same personality over and over again. And it was something that I realized that I think I had just finally grown tired of that approach. And so somebody that I really like, and it's just much smaller channel, but is Jamarl Thomas, the Progressive Soapbox. Yeah. And I loved, during all that time, even when he was covering like the Charlottesville stuff, he was calm and just like analyze stuff. And I was like, we have to get away from this, like, that kind of personality, I think, that we're...
sensationalism stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm really turned off.
Sensationalism.
I'm very turned off to that now, and I mean, to be honest, I'm a huge Jimmy Dore fan. I haven't watched a lot of his videos recently just because I've been busy. So, but I've seen his, freak outs, but to me, they don't feel the same way as, like, kind of an act or character, like with Bill Maher and Jank. I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion, but it's just different. It's not.
Have you ever heard of the Rational National, David Dole?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of.
Yeah.
Let me look. I think
he's really interesting, and one of the things that I really liked from him is he broke down, like, he's a big Sam Cedar fan, and he's a big Jimmy Dore fan, and one of the things that he really broke down, like somebody from Sam Cedar.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Rational.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so he broke down about how the only time that Sam Cedar goes like batshit crazy is when he's punching left and punching Jimmy Dore. Like, the only time he gets super energetic is when he's punching left at Jimmy Dore, and it's really interesting. But that if you want somebody who's less sensational and has a pretty good mind for articulating some of the things going on, a younger guy, probably near a decade younger than me, but I suspect he might be an interesting person for you.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of him, but I don't think I've actually watched.
I generally like Rational National's content, although, he's a pretty typical Canadian liberal by most standards.
Oh, yes, I do know. Okay.
So, like, he seems like a pleasant fellow enough.
Wait a minute.
But I doubt I'd have much in common with him beyond the surface stuff.
Wait, is he at all kind of to the right, or no?
No, he's just a Canadian. He's just a Canadian liberal. So
okay. I think.
You have to understand also, like, progressive is like being a liberal in Canada is like being a progressive in the United States. So it's kind of a relative statement.
You know who I like on YouTube? I don't know if you guys have heard of The Real News.
Oh yes.
They do some pretty good expose stuff,
yeah.
And they seem to work pretty hard at not having a skew in one direction or another. Although, at the end of the day, whoever's committing the most crimes seems to eat the shit on those shows.
Right. Well, that's Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate are my two favorite on there, really. But no, it's all good. I think it's some interesting. Yeah, there was a recent one. With Paul J, they were talking about kind of what I was saying earlier, like, let's focus on what Trump has actually done instead of, it was how is Trump's working class rhetoric compared to his policies. So anyway, I just think is important to focus on, instead of trashing him as a person. But anyway. So yeah, I always recommend The Real News to my friends that are still watching cable. The few that I know that are still watching cable. Snork, can you? Oh, you were.
Do you have audio, sir?
I thought I heard something.
Oh, okay. So, what's your schedule with the podcast? What are you doing?
So we record basically every other week. We were doing it every single week, and I just have a lot on my plate. And I edit the podcast, and I produce the music that goes on it, and kind of create the YouTube video. And I made us a website so it was easier to upload now. So we changing have a central location.
Right. Okay. And are you going to start doing video? Is that what you said?
Well, no. We also use YouTube to push our product, but it's just it's kind of a montage of photos that I find around the internet that seem to fit whatever we're talking about. If you'll see our interview, I got a couple of goofy pictures of Bill Maher that pop up when you mention that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
But
no,
it's not a live podcast. It's definitely produced. We come up with a topic, we'll discuss it on the outside. We'll play with ideas on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter sometimes to flesh some things out, and then we talk for a couple hours and we interview some people, and usually Josh chimes in with some activism because he's always involved, and me and Mr. Cheney will break stuff down. And so anyway, every other week we record, and then it takes me about 4 or so days to actually edit and make it pretty. And then we upload it, and then I try to break it up and upload sections. I haven't been very good this week, but it's midday weekend, so I'm taking time off from that. But yeah, so next Saturday we'll have another episode, and last Saturday we recorded episode 17. So.
Okay, so what are you focusing on with guests? Like just mainly activists and?
Yep. What I wanted to do for that, and also Josh has started doing some interviews too. Whenever he comes across people on his outings, he's like the traveling Mac. If you ever watched some of those old shows, but what was I thinking of? Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway.
Guess.
Yeah, no, it was an old HBO TV show I was thinking of, a children's show of these things that lived underground, and they had a traveling Mac. He would go out and interact with a dog or something. Oh, well, my mind's gone. We try to interview activists, people that have 9-to-5 jobs or whatever. They work for a living, but they also find the time to do stuff for free to try to make the world a better place. So I don't really want to shoot. I mean, if a politician wanted to get interviewed, that would be great, especially if it was somebody who was working from a grassroots perspective. But as far as the career political wonk dudes and stuff, even if I had the chance to interview them, I probably wouldn't, because they get interviewed everywhere else.
Right.
And what I want is folks like the two of you that are part of CFAR and CWAC. And this last interview I did was Corey Cheney, Jesse's wife, who is one of the directors of Our Voice USA. And I just want to get their perspective, how long they've been active, whether or not it was this recent election that made them explode, or if they've been doing this their whole life. A lot of people I come across, they didn't even vote until they witnessed this happen, and now they can't stop thinking about politics. And so anyway, I want more exposure for those kind of folks that we come across, like people that claim to be real progressives and all that.
Yeah. So do you feel like there's apathy, or are people more fired up? Like, I don't know, I just keep saying it's not going to happen now. We got to keep going till 2020. I mean, or and beyond, really, but to see results. But I just wonder if you think people are still fired up, or are they feeling like with?
I think people are feeling like you're feeling. It's like a mix. They're fired up enough to stick with it. Right. And they definitely have gotten used to the hustle, so it's not as difficult, or maybe even not as exciting as it was at first. But they're waiting for that magic moment when it's going to seem to matter a whole lot more to the rest of the public. 2019 is going to be a slow year, but that's when you have to do most of your work, because when 2020 rolls around, you're competing to get information out, and you're competing for eyes on your stuff with people who have unlimited wealth, and you're running this tiny little operation. You know what I mean? So I would say that the people who are involved are getting a little bit apathetic about not getting results as immediately as they wanted. But those who are sticking around are smart enough to recognize that this is a very long haul. It's kind of like the Poor People's Campaign. It's not going to happen overnight. In fact, it stopped for a while and got picked back up after a nice gentleman was shot. So, that's how I see it.
Yeah, we had a guy that came on. Oh, what was his name? He was in Texas. I can't remember. I followed him here. But he came on for it's at Sir James Gray, and I think he does some kind of a podcast or something. But anyway, he came on the Bill Cimbrello town hall, and he said, you guys should really, we were talking about the I think what their successes of some of our candidates. I mean, if you have no money and you had a complete and total mainstream media blackout, and you got 30 some odd % of the vote, I think that's pretty good, right?
That's an amazing step.
Yeah.
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 It's more than pretty good.
Dude, that's huge. That's not even pretty good. That's hands down.
Like
fantastic.
Sama Hernandez, Lisa McCormick in New Jersey. I mean, there are a bunch of them. And
Same
so,
as the best. She's such a genuine person, I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
If I had a chance to interview her, I totally would.
Cool. Well, did she? I know she signed CFAR. I think she signed CWAC, but I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure.
I know. Actually, I found out who she was through CFAR. So.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure. Sometimes there's a lot of overlap, and actually CWAC has a lot more candidates, but sometimes I get them mixed up. I'm pretty sure she signed both. Anyway, my feeling with all of them is to have that much success with so little money and exposure. That to me, I think that just signifies like what could happen over the next 2 years.
Yeah, we got to keep going.
It's like watching a brand new baseball team with a bunch of phenoms, and they didn't actually get the pennant this year, but they're coming back after the season.
They're coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we hope, and I actually am kind of excited about post midterms, because I think a lot of candidates. There are certain subjects I'd like to bring up, but I think. Unfortunately, some might not want to go there before an election. I think maybe doing something where we compile that information. Oh, that's what I was saying. I got sidetracked. The guy in Texas was saying, I think he was part of Democratic Socialist group there, but he was saying you guys should compile all this into like some nice graphs that show like, okay, this candidate had only $5,000 and, got on one, no media and all, and just to let people see that in a graph, like, look, there is success, there is hope.
Yeah, it shows success as the distance between how much was raised and how many how many people you connected to and voted for you, as opposed to I raised $2 billion and 13 Russian Twitter trolls destroyed my entire campaign. Right. That I would say is a massive failure. I wouldn't even admit to that if it was true. What an idiot.
Right.
Just saying.
The funny part is that they were also taking money from or info from the Russians for dirt too. So that's a bit awkward.
Right. I can't wait for that shit to come out.
And so I've often said, what is more ridiculous? The idea that 1/100th of 1%, $100,000 versus 1 billion, so 1/100th of 1% was enough to defeat you, or the idea that you're like, I know these guys who spent 1/100th of 1% are who beat me. Let's go and proselytize this. This is a great idea. Like I don't know which one is worse.
Like I've said on numerous other versions of this podcast before, I'll say it again. This is the reason why we need to be outsourcing our political propaganda work to the Chinese.
Yes.
Screw
so
getting
much more efficient.
paying these lawyers like $10,000 an hour when you could pay like a 12-year-old Chinese kid who only knows how to program in C++.
Right.
$3 like
using Cyrillic
an hour for 3 months, and he will do the same work.
Some kid.
All right,
Some kid who was paid slave wages to go be a Chinese gold farmer for World of Warcraft. We can then use him to spread propaganda for U.S. politics.
Right. Has anyone noticed?
Hell, I'll one-up you. You could have just went to 4chan and they would have done it for free.
Right.
Has anyone noticed that some things are starting to show from all of the insurgents of the people that are for Medicare for all and things like that? Biden the other day changed his mind. He's now for, which also probably says he's probably going to run. But now they're starting to see that they have to be for Medicare for all if they want any chance of winning at all. Now, I still think, I don't have a short memory. You were against me in the past.
Yeah, well, it's Silly Rabbits, Peter Douche's tweet just comes to mind. It was a vote, is Kamala Harris a progressive or a progressive? And of course the progressive in quotes won.
Totally. She's still a cop, dude.
This might sound,
she's still a cop.
this might sound bad, but cartoons involving all the neocons from now on should have rabbit ears on the person who's the fake person. You know, like
Right.
like the quotes. They should have little rabbit ears
right.
drawn on them.
That's perfect.
That would be a perfect meme to me to start getting the idea out. Kamala Harris, Booker, these people are no go. We're not going to vote for them.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I'm active in the Democratic Party. I will not vote for somebody that I do not feel is worthy of being president.
Right.
That's great.
Blue, no matter who, is just hooey to me.
And
Yeah.
you know that they like to call that a purity test. I call it the baseline. If you can't
Yes.
even match my
Right.
baseline,
Yes.
what the fuck are you worth? Like,
I call it
it's
my
not-
That's great.
I call it my American duty.
yeah, right. That's what the vote's for. It's who earns your vote, not who deserves it. Because they said if you don't vote for me, Satan's coming. You know.
No, it's like the argument that I got into with my brother.
An asshole.
What, Eolas?
I don't know. I think somebody's an
No,
asshole.
it belongs to me, and if you don't agree with me, then you're an asshole.
Right.
Right.
And nobody likes an asshole.
It's like the argument I got into with my brother because he was a Hillary supporter. And he's like, well, you know, when you find a candidate, you've just got to stick with them. And I go, it doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. That's not how our democracy works. They're supposed to represent us. We're not supposed to be loyal to them. It's supposed to be the other way around.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not supposed to pick a candidate like a friggin' horse and stick with them through the entire race. No, if they go against our interests, we ditch them and go with the one that actually does represent our interests.
Preach it.
They're supposed to represent us. We're not supposed to have loyalty to them. That makes no sense.
And that's exactly what we mean by taking the power back.
Right.
It's not about any kind of violence. It's just about that one aspect, that one moment where you realize that your vote did matter, and it is something that they desperately need, and they need to get back
Right.
a couple of notches
But-
below where they think they are.
The Democratic Party is just everything I see is they're still just operating on. They're hoping that will work. It didn't
Right.
work. It didn't work last time, but they're hoping that vote shaming or whatever.
Yeah, we're still not Trump.
Right, exactly. And I haven't dug in and analyzed all the numbers yet, but just looking at the Arizona primary and the Ohio one a while back, I mean, you just look at the raw numbers of people that came out to vote. And I mean, I understand that in midterms, it's typically more Republican, older voters that come out. But with all of this hysteria, the anti-Trump hysteria and the Russiagate stuff, you would think, that there's just going to be this massive. I mean, it is more, the turnout's higher, but it is still in many states, from what I've seen so far, just raw numbers. More people are coming out to vote Republican, still. Yeah. So I, for one, am like, I will not be shocked at all if Trump wins again in 2020. I will not be shocked at all.
Right. Neither will I.
Neither
Kelly,
will I.
you brought up about.
But hey.
Oh, go ahead.
But hey, when apocalypse comes, at least we'll be able to die laughing about it. We probably won't even have that luxury. This is all going to go fucking downhill from here.
Yeah, I think Trump will win. I see some people out there that I don't think the Democratic Party is actually capable of picking the right candidate. But
and
I think Trump
comes to mind.
I don't think they are capable of tying their own shoelaces, much less.
At this point, I have to agree.
But I feel that Trump will get elected from the Republican side because they need him to get in just for a month so they can let the Democratic Party impeach him and then put Pence in for president.
And let Pence finish the job, yeah.
It's the only way they can get Pence in.
So right, man.
I don't think they would have let Trump go as far as they did unless he was a Trojan horse to get Pence in.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pence even made an announcement at some kind of speech rally thing that he did where he said, we will see an end to the separation of church and state in our lifetime. Pretty sure that's a quote from him. And that kind of thing to
and
say,
so-
he doesn't have that power yet. So one could deduce from that he was alluding, if this is a big novel that we're reading, right? Like he's pointing that out.
But
What Mitch just suggested.
Yeah, if Trump were to be assassinated, Pence could not win 2020. So
good point.
There's nobody's going to get going. He's the best protected president ever.
That's crazy to
Interesting.
consider. Yeah.
Now, what were you saying? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Like I said, I feel that everything that happened was people trying to say, okay, we really need a Romney. We really need a whatever office. But we know that people will not elect them. This is the only way to get in. Who's the candidate will go for us the most? And I believe a deal was struck between Trump and the party that they would let him be president, but they got to pick who's going to be the vice president.
Right. I can see that.
And I don't even think he minds playing the bad guy.
They actually there was a story about that. So there was actually a detour. Trump was flying across the U.S. and there was a detour in Indiana. He's like, "Why are we stopping here? Oh, I'm going to meet Pence." So that there wasn't even a deal. This guy's a fucking moron. To think that Trump has any sort of three-dimensional strategy. This is just a guy that they know that can be bombastic. He can get voters out, and they can use him. And that's all it was. And they said, let's get this guy who ultimately can push our ulterior motive. And then coming to your point about Russiagate, Kelly, and let's bring back Bill Maher. It wasn't that long ago, maybe 2-3 months ago, that he mentioned that, maybe we just need another recession in order for people to realize how bad Russia really is. Like,
yes, he did.
He just rich the people, and so Russiagate's a privilege. People don't give a fuck because Russiagate is a privilege.
It falls into that category of things that, like, if you're going to be Machiavellian, don't admit that you're being Machiavellian.
Wait, what were you saying?
The thing about
I think Tupac did that too.
The thing about political deception is that, or just politics, or just being around people in general. I have Asperger's. These rules took me a while to learn, so take these to heart. Number one, if you don't have something good to say, don't say it. But addendum to rule number one. If you're gonna say things that are directly manipulative or hurtful to others, and you're doing it for your own ulterior motives, don't admit them in public.
It's the American way.
That doesn't make you smart. That just makes you an asshole.
Isn't that Bambi's mother's rule? Can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Personally,
we all know what happened to Bambi.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, let Mike Pence take over.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, I'm pretty Machiavellian myself. I kind of think that we'll have a market correction, a severe one, between September 24th and October 1st, because they need to get a reason for us to implement some special rules on how to make more austerity fast.
Yeah.
And they have to do it so that it's enacted and able to get done before there's any possible switch in Congress. Other than that, I don't think it'll be as severe a depression unless in November the Democratic Party wins. Then I think they'll go all out, saying a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after the Democratic Party were to take office, I believe they will do everything they can to kneecap the economy, so they blame an extremely bad economy on the Democratic Party.
Oh yeah,
and any green that happens to get in office.
Right.
Huh. Well, what does everyone think? Any predictions do you think they're going to win, or Democrats? What's your sense? I mean, we're all in different parts of the country, so.
Yeah, our only chance is if Andrew Yang gets the nomination. That's it. It's our only chance.
Well,
Andrew Yang will bring back the burners to the Democratic Party to burn. It'll prove that they're not rigging this election. right. So they've already turned the
Yeah,
cameras
good
off
point.
on him once.
We
Again,
need to get
he's
him.
had the.
We
So
need to get him to sign CFAR and CWAC and interview him.
as soon as I talk to him, I'll be talking to him in a few weeks.
Cool.
You know, if they don't, they are going to lose, and they're going to lose badly.
Yeah.
So that is our one hope. A friend of ours, James, is trying to get Jesse Ventura, and I don't think Jesse Ventura would be bad. It was amazing how he won.
Ministerial race.
But I don't think that the act is together enough at the time it needs to be. Imagine
Not cleaned up, but he has a great heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are on the top of a snowy slope right now.
Yeah.
A snowball gains size as it rolls downhill. We've already passed the point where you needed to roll a snowball to win in 2020.
Right.
And he's missed his mark.
Yeah.
Right.
So the election really went into high stream. For the 2020 election, presidential election is already on the ground and going in Iowa.
Yes.
You know, some people like Biden can jump in late because they got name recognition. Justin Ventura has a name recognition, but he doesn't have the reputation of being able to be president. I'm not saying that I don't think he does, but I'm thinking that the mindset and the people is not there. We're still on this binary. It must be Republican. It must be Democrat.
Depends how good this new Predator movie is going to be.
Now, do you guys all know about this guy Yang?
I don't have time to bleed.
Right.
I love that.
I just want to see if Jesse Ventura actually shows up at the Predator. I just hope that the film ends with him suplexing the Predator before delivering the people's elbow directly onto the guy's face.
You know what I would like to see, though? I would like to see more, whether it be progressive candidates or just activists, when they happen to get on podcasts, happen to get their time on news, where they're talking to reporters and they bring up a purity test, or if their reporter brings up purity test and say, well, you know what, you're right, I do have a purity test. My purity test is that, again, I add to the human condition, I add a net positive value. So then I look at things like the minimum wage. Well, if the minimum wage means that you then have to get food stamps, and then you're taking away from taxpayers' pockets. Well, you know, to me, this is something that the average Republican can get down with, and I think that this is a net negative to the human condition. So let's raise the minimum wage until you don't have to take from taxpayers in order to subsidize these people that effectively have the Pharaoh's coffers. And so I'd like to see people actually just own it, because often you see right-wingers that they will set the stage and they will go ahead and effectively try to state the narrative and have you combat against it. And they don't expect you to come out and be like, you're fucking right, I have a fucking purity test, and let me tell you what that shit is. And it's gonna take them back, and they're gonna have to reel, because they're used to their own talking points, and they just throw shit out there and get you to say no, it isn't. And one thing to kind of drive that point home, I don't know if you guys saw, Kyle Kalinske was on Fox News not that long ago, and they were talking to him about, do you really think that Cory Bush should be the new face of the Democratic Party? And it showed some douchebag, I can't remember his name, and he was trying to ask her about, what do you think about these rich people paying taxes? You know, the way the effective tax rate is, insert lie here. So they ultimately pay less because insert lie here. And so she didn't really say anything, and she looked a little dumb and a little silly. And so he was like, do you think that Cory Bush should be the new face of the Democratic Party? He's like, you're fucking right, I do. And he didn't say fucking, of course. He's like, you're right. You're damn right, I do. Because, we have this out of control CEO pay, blah, 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 blah. And so it threw them back, and they didn't know what to do with it. And so, they kind of pushed back against it, and he threw back in their faces, and they had a hard time really pushing him in a corner because he refused to go against the ropes. And I think this is ultimately what we need to do. If we're going to be the intellectual the intellectual group. Well, then let's intellectualize around these guys who chew on bones and drag their knuckles for a living. It really shouldn't be that hard.
I need to add one thing there. I don't have a purity test. I have 20.
Right.
Very good.
Right.
Josh,
I'd like to add one thing. It's not necessarily going to be a Democrat who will end up saving everybody from all of this nightmare.
Right.
It could be a Republican. We just need to keep our minds open.
Yeah.
Although, I will say this. It's just kind of funny that it's kind of like Batman's relationship with Gotham. It's kind of like, yeah, but couldn't there be like anybody else?
I think an independent.
Like,
I really do.
We need Harvey Dent.
Like not even Green Arrow or some shit.
Right.
Have you guys ever heard of?
If an independent could drag the what is it, like 46% of the people who didn't even fucking vote, if they can get those folks to actually come out and say, "Oh my goodness, you're genuine. This is the one time I'll do it," they would rock the world. However, just as they said about Sanders, if he had one, he either would have been cut off at the knees or simply shot within the first couple of years. I mean, if you think about it, as far as whenever the motivation comes about for people to try to assess Democrats to vote for them,
right,
in that situation. In other countries, anyway, that's why they did it. In our own past, that's why they've done it.
Yes.
And they, meaning Nebulous. I don't know who fucking shot those people, but it was always for a political reason.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we do come across someone who can make that big giant change, that big leap of faith. How do we protect this person? And how do we get any of their stuff to pass?
Like Tim Canova needs bodyguards.
Yeah, like are they just going to be stopped immediately every time they try to make a turn? I don't know. But
well, I mean, has Trump already set the stage for how to do that? I mean, could you not have somebody effectively just live stream from the Oval Office and be like, "Look, guys,
have a
I'm coming
24-hour video."
Yeah. The last time somebody went after the Fed, let's say, let's go with JFK. He got shot. Went after the Fed and he died. Well, Reagan mentioned something shit about the Fed, and he got shot too.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm going after the Fed, but you know what? I'm not going to leave this fucking building, guys, because I'm afraid for my life. And if I die, I want you to know that it was the goddamn Federal Reserve that came after me. And that would be an interesting way to talk to the people. I think Trump. I think he underestimates how destructive Twitter is, and not necessarily because he's a retard. And I apologize to anyone who's mentally handicapped. Like, this guy's a legit retard. And I don't think he fully appreciates how much he's undermining how useful Twitter really could be, how useful YouTube Live really could be. Do you think that YouTube is going to take this? Is going to risk cutting off the president?
Dude, POTUS Periscope? Are you kidding? I would never shut that off. It'd be on my computer getting recorded, just like everybody else, right?
And so, and that's how you do it. You get somebody who's just like, I got nothing to lose. Whether it be a Bernie Sanders who's who's in his 70s by the time he would get in, or just somebody who's just who has 20 purity tests. Whatever. I'm not going to leave this office. I'm going to piss in a chamber pot because I'm afraid of what sort of goddamn go-go gadget bomb is going to pop up if I go to a public urinal.
Right.
Yeah, well, we got grocery delivery and Amazon, so
yeah, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of out of the independent candidates we've talked to, who would be. I could see Sander Hicks being that kind of person to do that. Maybe Tim Canova. Definitely.
Well, from the way Brian described Mitch's boy, I think they're both right. That could be the one.
Yeah. In fact, I think our biggest thing is, I think like I said, in another episode, we talked about how CNN and MSNBC, when he was at the major thing that kicks off all Democratic Party candidacy, Yang was not mentioned that he was there.
It's amazing.
And he was like, he got the best applause and everything from it. There was another guy that basically said, yeah, I agree with Yang. It was almost like his entire thing was, I want to be his VP. and then a third guy came on. His name was Ryan. I forgot about him. typical mainstream, and then came on the one that CNN loved, and he actually isn't even an official candidate yet, and CNN loved him, everybody loved him, and he's the Democratic Party had to add him in at the last, just kind of like Perez got added in when everybody
right.
did.
The ringer at the last second.
And Avenatti is the lawyer going against Trump, and for CNN, MSNBC, this is perfect because it's the war of Trump versus the Trump killer.
The ambulance chaser. That guy's such a schmuck.
So my hope is, and what really has to happen is, we as a party, if they keep on turning up the cameras when Yang comes on, if CNN keeps pretending that he doesn't exist, we need to get the data out there. We need to make it shown. We need to convince him that if they're jerking him around, that he needs to go third party, not just roll over.
Don't concede.
Yeah.
Don't concede. Don't fuel whoever they want to pick to be the spokesperson for whatever donors they have.
Yeah.
Instead, we need to get behind this guy and say, we want you as a third party. We're not going to vote. We're going to have 75 million people stay home, and they're going to stay home unless you run third party. And you know what? If you run third party, it will pull out another $35 million from the Democratic Party of people that will say, no, we're not going to go with the selector. We're going to go with this one that's got the 75 million votes.
Nice.
Because it will never have this again, where the people are going to vote blue no matter who.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a
and
strategy.
At the very worst, you're likely going to get at least 5% of the vote in a presidential election, which means that you've now got a third party who's on the national stage when it comes to debates, which is what we fucking need.
Well,
because the old people who watch the goddamn news, they don't know that there's anyone beyond the fucking Republicans and the Democrats that are a viable candidate.
Yeah. Well, we know that Trump will not get over 25% of the vote. We know that Biden or Hillary, if she runs again, will not get over 20% of the vote.
Yeah, it's all about the center that's not doing anything.
The third party only needs to win.
Yeah,
that doesn't even need to win more probably than 27% to win. If there was a time to win third party, it's this election.
Man, I wish Richard Pryor was still around. We could get him to do none of the above again.
And if nothing else, the threat that people start realizing, we're not going to get voters unless we say this. We're not going to get voters unless we say this. If nothing else, it gets in the mind of the people. We're only going to vote for this. We're going to keep hammering the candidates until we start getting that.
Yep.
Right.
So when I was out of the room, Josh, I heard you saying something about the podcast, like what you would like to do, something about candidates, and what were you saying?
More. It's about a purity test. I'd like to see somebody either manufacture a time where they can bring up purity test, or have somebody attacked for saying you got a purity test, and say you're fucking right, I do. You know what my purity test is? It's standing up for the working class. It's standing up for adding a net positive value to the human condition. And you know, if somebody is working 40 hours a week and they still have to go on public support that takes away from the taxpayer, well then, like Bernie Sanders is saying, let's go ahead and tax that CEO, because that's horseshit. And so these CEOs need to be paying their dues, yada yada yada. But ultimately, don't have somebody say you have a purity test, say no I don't, and then all of a sudden you're on the ropes.
You got to own it.
Let them put you on the rope.
Yeah.
Yep. Everything they throw at you, you take it and you reshape it and you toss it back and say, look, it's a flower now. Yeah.
That's what I did in my argument with Michael McFaul. The former ambassador to Russia on Twitter actually attempted to vote shame me into voting for Hillary Clinton.
Jesus.
It was late one night.
Michael McFaul personally tried to vote shame me.
Yes, and I have had several interactions with him since that, where I called him out on that, and then another. What were we talking about? Oh, it was a debate between him and who was that guy that came on Anderson Cooper's show? Max Boot was on there. He's a NYU professor, like Russian studies, and he had a debate with McFaul and kind of I think, wiped the floor with him. But anyway, it was late one night, and McFall was like arguing with WikiLeaks, like going back and forth. And I just jumped in. I wasn't expecting anybody to respond to me. And all of a sudden, I'm like, who's this Michael McFall guy? And he's a professor, I think at Stanford. But I mean, if you look him up on Facebook, there's a picture of him on Air Force One. He's the former ambassador to Russia. And he was just arguing with me. He's like, you're in North Carolina, you're in a swing state. And I'm like, so? And he just
and your point?
badgered me for like 3 days, and I just didn't relent. I was like, there is no reason I would ever vote for Hillary Clinton. No way. And it just pissed him off. And then he deleted some of the tweets when I called him out on it that he had, done this, tried to, vote shame me. He deleted them. But yeah, he just 3 nights in a row for probably 30, 45 minutes.
You should go check out the Wayback Machine and get some screen caps for memorabilia.
Yeah, maybe I should. But it was not too long ago that he responded again. Because I was like, hey, remember me? The one you tried to vote shame into voting for Hillary Clinton? What do you think about this? And I couldn't find the debate between he and that, whatever the guy is. I have to find that. It was a great clip. Did nobody see that? It was where...
Did he tell you to stay in your lane?
Yeah. Damn it. What is it? Hang on a second. I got to find it. It was great because...
That wouldn't come across as sexist at all. Just
it was, but
stay in the kitchen, woman.
So I tweeted at him again because I had heard that there was this debate between the guy that was on CNN, older guy, and he basically, like Max Boot was talking to Anderson Cooper about how terrible it was that Trump was talking to Putin. And the whole thing that happened in Helsinki, and the older guy, whatever his name is, he comes on and he said, this is not unusual that there was a, behind closed doors discussion. This happens. It's happened in history. And he basically just schooled them, and it was beautiful. So I wanted to know more about that guy, and then I saw there was some debate with McFall. So he actually sent me, I couldn't find it, and I said I'd love to see that, and included McFall in the tweet, and he actually sent it back to me and sent the clip.
Nice.
Or sent the link to the video. But yeah, he still kind of like at first denied that he had done that. And I'm like, you don't remember this? Like 3 nights telling me I'm in a swing state and I'm somehow obligated. I mean, it just pissed him off that I would not relent. So anyway. Let's see if I can.
I shut a lot of people down just by saying, what, I've seen the travesties of war, and I can't vote for a warmonger. And then they were like, okay. Right. And some people still try to shame, but still.
No, he was just working on me, and I'm like,
yeah, I as a veteran, I could not bring myself to vote for Hillary. There was just no damn way. I just couldn't. There's no way.
I think Nico had some very choice words on that subject too, and he also technically served, maybe not directly with the military, but through contract. No,
I don't know.
It's Stephen Cohen, NYU.
Oh, Cohen, right.
NYU Russian Studies professor Stephen Cohen. But it's. He basically, it was...
You're getting tight with Russians.
Hang on, actually...
From the Duran, and today...
Actually, am I allowed to do this? I've done it before.
Yeah, you're quoting somebody, yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, if I play it, I've done that before. We played all of Collateral Murder on Facebook one night. I did. Okay, hang on, let me see. Let me pull it up here.
Yeah, no, but playing someone's actual voice is like quoting them. So
okay, right. Well, I haven't gotten in trouble for it before, but Brian, do you remember that? Like Ebon, we played like a Saturday Night Live clip, and he got whatever copyright strike. So.
Ew.
I don't know. But anyway, I think this is great.
I might need to turn in for tonight.
You don't want to hang out for this wonderful clip? No,
I'm getting closer to it.
As much as I'd love to.
Well, then you know what? I'll just put this link down somewhere below. Or you know what? I'll play it, and if everybody wants to sign off, I'll just play it as we're signing off. If you feel like watching it.
It's just I'm thinking about driving back to Stillwater tomorrow to see my family for Labor Day.
Gotcha.
So
That's cool. Well, it is 2 a.m. on the East Coast, so okay. I'm gonna play this.
what are you guys doing up this late? Go to bed.
It's early.
Labor Day.
It's early yet. It's not my bedtime yet.
Early my ass. It's like 1 a.m.
All right. Here we go. Wait a minute. Hang on. Wait, I shouldn't have that up there.
You know, it's midnight in Utah, and I'm not even wearing my magic underwear.
Ahaha. Wait a minute. Why is that not working?
I don't. Oh my God! Why?
Wait, I did something very wrong here. Hang on. I've done something very wrong, and now I don't know how to stop it. Uh-oh. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Sorry. Okay.
Wolf Blitzer.
Hang
What
on.
The most trusted name in news. Second only to Brian Williams.
Fucking
Right.
the guy who doesn't know what a
Or was it Chuck Todd? I honestly get those three mixed up.
I told you it's not Chuck Todd. It's fuck wad. You keep pronouncing
Well,
On
Chuck
MSDNC.
Chuck Todd is a fuckwad, so I mean you're not wrong on there.
No, ZNN. He's part of
NYU
them.
professor
Okay.
emeritus
Wait.
and nation contributing editor
It's
Stephen
not
Cohen, one of the country's
going
preeminent
where I want
Russian
It is.
scholars.
It is now.
Professor Cohen,
Okay.
thanks a lot for joining us. Assess, if you would, the reaction today to this
Good
press
night,
conference
whoever
and to the
wants to
summit
sign off.
between Putin and Trump.
The reaction by most of the media, by the Democrats, by the anti-Trump people is like mob violence. I've never seen anything like it in my life. This is
Wait a
the
minute,
President
wait a
of the
minute,
United
wait a
States
minute.
doing.
Hang on.
Yeah, we can hear it, but we can't see it.
I don't know what's going on. You know what? Here it is.
Maybe one of the world's greatest
So you
mysteries.
can't
What
see it?
happened at the 2-hour
No.
plus sit-down between Vladimir Putin and President Trump in Helsinki? The
It's
president brought the
showing up
subject
in
back
the-
into the news cycle
You know what?
today.
It's on YouTube.
I had a
think
great meeting, in my opinion. Of course, the fake news didn't cover it that way, but I had a great meeting with President Putin of Russia.
Says it was a great meeting. We didn't cover it that way because we have no idea what actually took place in that meeting. Max
know what?
Boot
It's
is
on
here,
YouTube.
CNN Global Affairs analyst, and Stephen Cohen,
So if you
professor
guys wanna
emeritus of
log
Russian
off.
Studies and Politics at NYU and Princeton.
I would like
Max,
to share
let's
one
start with
little
you. I mean,
funny caveat.
the president's
real quick
saying he had a
before,
great meeting with
before we
Vladimir
log
Putin.
off.
The fact is,
I
it's
see that
been
you
2
have
weeks.
open the Progressive Rampage on Twitter.
Oh,
Recently,
yes.
I was on my computer and I went into what is it? Secret mode or whatever, where it doesn't have all of your presets in it, because I wanted to see how we pop up, because I'm trying to look at what the SEO looks like and stuff. And I looked up Progressive Rampage and the Twitter page popped up and I clicked on it and it has it preset on Google in Arabic language.
What?
Right? And it was the top of the page, the top of the fold link as well. It like I had to scroll further down to find the English version of it.
Weird.
But it's automatically set to Arabic, and I don't speak Arabic. I don't understand that language. And then I was looking up a buddy, Will Markham, the guy I told you about that did speaking progressive to Republicans. And when you type in the word Russia in Facebook, because I was making a post about something having to do with Russia, when you type that word in, his name pops up for me as a possible person that I'm trying to write about. His name's Will Markham, and he pops up when I type in Russia. Just throwing that.
What?
Strange.
That
I don't
is
know why that
really
would happen.
strange.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I'll say good night and thank you guys for coming. This was really cool. I think we can all talk for hours, as we did. And Corey said she might like to come next time. Maybe Jamie will too.
Cool.
So yeah, is Sunday night is better for you guys usually, or for you, Chris?
Yeah, definitely for me. I have Monday off normally from my work anyway.
Okay.
So,
Well, maybe
Saturdays
we can
and
do
Monday.
a Sunday thing. Maybe not every weekend, but every other week or something like that.
Yeah, sure. That'd be awesome.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna play the rest of this because I think it's fantastic, and say good night to everybody. So, good night.
Cool.
Thank you for coming.
Peace, y'all.
All right. Good night.
Now, we still don't know what went on behind closed doors between these two.
Well, that's exactly right, Anderson. And Trump is aggrieved that he's not getting the credit that he thinks he deserves. But we have no idea what the heck happened. And if you listen to Mike Pompeo's testimony last week, even Secretary Pompeo doesn't have a clear idea of what happened. This is not normal. This is not what normally happens when two leaders meet. You're seeing Trump continuing to praise Putin, and we don't know the substance of what they discussed. That's a scary scenario.
Stephen, I mean, do you think it's problematic that we don't know what was said in that 2+ hour meeting between these two world leaders? And you know, as Max said, it didn't seem like Mike Pompeo or others maybe even have a firm grasp on what was said.
I don't think it's unusual. We do have a pretty good sense of what was discussed, both from what Trump's people have said, but equally from 2 or 3 speeches Putin has given. Let me just rattle them off because I was looking at them today. They discussed trying to avoid a new nuclear arms race by keeping alive 2 treaties that exist. They talked about peace in Syria, including securing Israeli borders from Iranian forces. That would be very important to Americans, I think. They talked about the possibility of a joint alliance against terrorists who are in pursuit of weapons of mass destruction. They talked about doing more business, which doesn't make much sense because of the sanctions. And they talked in some way about the United States becoming more involved in the Minsk agreement, which is the only agreement we have to resolve the Ukrainian crisis.
But how do you know that's what they actually talked about?
Those are good things.
You have to take Putin's word for this. This is what they talked about.
The Russian side has said.
Right. So you're going on the side. You're believing Vladimir Putin on this.
Well, I don't want to shock you, but I believe Vladimir Putin on several things. But the point is this has been confirmed by a number of Trump's people. Trump himself made some statements. We discussed this.
It hasn't really been confirmed. I mean,
he doesn't talk like a normal diplomat.
What President Trump actually said to Vladimir Putin is only known to Vladimir Putin and to President Trump. Even if Putin comes forward and says, "Oh, I said this," or even if President Trump comes forward and says, "Oh, I said this," we don't know for sure. The only thing we know for sure is what happened in that press conference. Did what happened at that press conference concern you at all, Stephen?
Well, let me give you an example. I, being older than both of you, maybe you don't remember. In early 1986, President Ronald Reagan met alone with then Soviet leader Gorbachev for, I think, about 2.5 hours. And everybody was very upset about it because Reagan was getting older in years, and people were worried. When the guys came out, Reagan and Gorbachev, they said, "We've decided to abolish nuclear weapons." And aides on both sides said, "You can't do that," just like that. So they backed off. But what happened 1 year later? Reagan and Gorbachev abolished a whole category of nuclear weapons, the intermediate range. Okay. So good things got done, and nobody else knew, except the 2 translators, what was said in there. Okay. So there's precedent.
President Trump today talked about meeting with the Iranian president, Rouhani, with no preconditions. Does that surprise you? Would that be wise?
It's not surprising to me at all, Anderson. In fact, I predicted it a week ago when Trump came out with that semi-deranged tweet in all capital letters threatening consequences the likes of which you've never seen before to Iran. Based on his pattern, you can pretty easily predict that after threatening these horrible consequences, Trump will then try to set up a meeting, glad hand, and before long he'll probably be praising Rouhani for being incredibly intelligent, smart, witty, warm, and reaching a deal that has no substance to it whatsoever. That's his pattern. The striking thing to me is that although he's willing to threaten North Korea, he's willing to threaten Iran, he never threatens Russia. And that's why a lot of intelligence officials think that there is something highly suspect in the relationship between Putin and Trump.
I have no idea what Mr. Booth is talking about. He wants Trump to threaten Russia? Why would we threaten Russia? You've got 2 nuclear superpowers.
Because they're attacking us. Russia is attacking us, Professor Cohen. Russia is attacking us right now, according to Trump's own director of national intelligence.
Russia, I've been studying Russia for 45 years. I've lived in Russia and I've lived here.
And you've been consistently an apologist for Russia in those 45 years.
Russia hasn't... Excuse me, what did you say to me?
I said you've been consistently an apologist for Russia in those last 45 years.
All right, I don't do defamation of people. I do serious analysis of serious national security problems. When people like you call people like me, and not only me, but people more eminent than me, apologists for Russia because we don't agree with your analysis, you are criminalizing diplomacy and détente, and you are the threat to American national security. End of story. Why do you have to defame somebody you don't agree with it? They used to do that in the old Soviet Union. We don't do that here. Well, we used to, but we need to stop it.
So you just finally, Stephen, you're saying Russia was not attacking the United States?
I know what you're talking about. That during the 2016 election, Russia attacked the United States. Yes, I don't think they attacked the United States.
Okay, and yet you just denied being an apologist for Russia. You're apologizing for Russia as we speak.
Well, you haven't let me finish. You don't know what I'm going to say.
Please
the meddling began, Mr. Cooper, and the meddling began right after the Russian Revolution when Woodrow Wilson sent American troops to fight in the Russian Civil War against the Communists. The meddling began on the Soviet and Russian, let me finish, on the meddling side when the Communists formed the Communist International, 1919. Ever since then, Moscow's meddled in our politics, we have meddled in theirs. This is low-level stuff, what went on. It is not an attack. It is not 9/11. It is not Pearl Harbor. It is not Russian paratroopers descending on Washington. This kind of hyperbole, an attack on America, suggests we need to attack Russia. So you've got Mr. Boot saying that Trump should threaten Russia? With what? Does he want to attack?
Try sanctions.
You know what I think? I think that Mr. Boot would have been happy if Trump had waterboarded Putin at the summit and made him confess. Trump carried out an act of diplomacy fully consistent with the history of American presidencies. Let us see what comes of it, then judge.
All right. Stephen Cohen, Max Boot, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow.